Happy Festivus? What is Festivus?
It's nothing.
When George was growing up, his father hated all the commercial and religious aspects of Christmas, so he made up his own holiday. Happy Festivus. Festivus. When George was growing up, his father.
It's nothing. It's a stupid holiday my father invented. It doesn't exist.
Happy Festivus, Georgie.
A new holiday was born. A Festivus for the rest of us. At the Festivus dinner, you gather your family around and tell them all the ways they have disappointed you over the past year. And is there a tree? No, instead there's a pole. Requires no decoration. I find tinsel distracting. Is that the pole? George, Festivus is your heritage. It's part of who you are.
Share the live stream with as many people as you can.
Read that pole. I can't read it.
Copy the link on YouTube and hit it, then send it to everybody.
I don't have people assigned. I mean, on Facebook. Okay.
Fascinating. It's a Festivus miracle. Welcome, newcomers. The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're going to hear about
I don't know how to do it, so here it is.
My son
Oh,
tells
there
me
we go.
your company
Don't give me that.
stinks. Frank, no offense, but this holiday is a little out. You can't go. Who's going to do the piece of string? How about George?
All you need to launch a celebrated art career, a cheap studio, a happy career making and a square.
So happy Festivus to everybody
Happy
who's turning in
Festivus!
today. Yeah. Hey, Jen, look, I'm a little elf and I'm coming around. See my cute little hat? And we deliver gifts all
He
the time.
looks like
Isn't that
Elf
great?
on the Shelf. He's
Yeah,
really
totally elf on the shelf. So glad everybody's tuning in tonight. We got a lot to talk about. It's been quite a Festivus miracle of a day, wouldn't you say? But what is there to say? Guys, hit the like button. If you're watching right now on YouTube, you got to hit that like button.
Please, and
On
subscribe if
Facebook,
you're not subscribed.
everything. Got to share it. Got to make sure everybody's on. Come on, baby. We got 60 people watching. We got no one hitting the like button yet. Hit the
Seriously.
like button.
But I think it's like, does everybody have a like button?
Yes, of
Every
course they do.
medium?
Yes, they do. They absolutely
Okay.
do.
All right.
So we decided we're going to do 2 holiday shows. We initially were only going to do tonight, but we do have another special guest coming on tomorrow night. So tonight's going to be very interesting because, as many of you know, a major story broke today by our good friend Jordan Chariton, who had it published in The Intercept, who we are friendly with. And, we obviously are going to be talking a lot about the treachery that took place at the Iowa caucus. But we all know that's only one of many things. When people talk nonstop about, what is election fraud, what is voter fraud, all that stuff, most of the time people are just screaming into the ether because they didn't get their way. Donald Trump is a perfect example of that. Hillary Clinton in 2016 is another great example of that. But when it comes to actual election fraud, there's no question that what has transpired in 2 primaries in the Democratic Party on Bernie Sanders. And let's be honest, they also did all different types of fraud.
But I feel like we should save this for when Jordan's on.
Yes.
I feel like we need to let him. So this is
he's
going to
dissect it.
And Jordan, who is an actual journalist, went and
Yes.
actually investigated. It's crazy, I know, but there are actually journalists that do investigative reporting still. And so this is a really big story. We all knew that there was something that was afoot in Iowa. Like, we knew that. It was clear that something was definitely not right. And so this is the concrete connection between what we knew wasn't right and how they got it, and where it went wrong. This is how now we know. So it'll be really interesting to talk to him about that.
No, there's no question that that'll be great. And then, of course, obviously now, as we know, there's a lot of chaos going on when it comes to getting our damn money, because that is our money that the government owes us.
Yeah.
$5 trillion for the richest people in the country. That's a lot of money to swim in for the next, 200 years, I suppose. But
so, we're going to talk about where are you? Are you doing news?
No,
or what are you doing?
we're kind of opening, dialogue.
Because I'm not sure how much we want to go into the stimulus now that it's sort of, been off the table now.
Well, what we did do this week was we delivered gifts to underserved communities, which is very important. And we ask as many people as who are comfortable with, doing the same. Obviously, a lot of people, especially down here, are still very fearful of COVID, and knowing our completely incompetent governor, how long it's going to take for people to get the vaccine and, feel safe to go out again on a regular basis, but still with social distance rules applying. But we were able to make a stop at the Broward.
We made a couple of stops of donations. It was nice.
Yeah, we were definitely able to make an impact for a number of families. Just the gesture alone means so much to so many who have so little right now, and that's why the whole thing about getting the stimulus check is so essential, not just for the purpose of obviously preventing eviction among other things, but the idea that most people are not going to have a traditional Christmas this year.
It's been bad for a lot
sad.
of people for a lot of years, and that's just the sad reality of where we are now. Like, this is just, I really feel like the holidays now are probably harder for more people than there are people that enjoy it. Like, I think that balance has been tipped. We're officially in a bad place. But what I want to say about it's like, yeah, we went around and made some donations, and everyone is always so eager to help for Thanksgiving, to do soup kitchens, do toy donations for Christmas, and that's great. We need to keep doing those things. But it's really, this is a year-round situation that we're in. We have so many families that are food insecure in our own backyard. We were at 500,000, and that was before COVID.
Who knows where we're at right now?
I'm not sure where Broward is now. I know that in the Tri-County area, Feeding South Florida is like overseeing 1.4 million families, or 4 million people. It's just sad. So I want people just to be aware that even when it's not holidays, we're still like, we need to all sort of be involved.
Well, again, we're getting into a situation now where, like with the gentleman Mike who was running the Broward, it's the I forgot the name of it, the Broward Center. But
the
it's
outreach center.
The Broward Outreach Center.
Yeah.
And so what was so important? Yeah. So what was so important about that was how Mike, who runs the center, was obviously very grateful that we were there, but he alluded to the fact that, but once the holidays are over, then things are really going to get bad, because then no one's really going to be as active. So it's really on us to make sure that we're doing what we can, to make sure that we are staying involved in the community as best we can. And so that's where GenCorp comes in, and you have some good news to report as far as our ability to take donations.
We're very close. Like, I hate to say it because I don't want to curse it, but hopefully by tomorrow afternoon, we will be able to have donations for GenCorp, which would be amazingly cool. We're just really trying to build coalitions and help people in the community. And it's just, there's so many things that we would be able to do and help that. Now, undoubtedly, I know people want to know, is there a tax deduction? There is not. We cannot be a 501c3.
No,
we can't, because if we're a 501c3, then we can't endorse candidates and we can't do political activity. And obviously that just doesn't work for us. So we are going to be a 501c4, which I recognize that people have issues with that because of the dark money problem. But we will be nothing but forthcoming. I have no reason to not be completely forthcoming and open about anybody that we take money from. So I have no problem with that. Like, I'd open my books easily. So, but that's why we're doing it that way. There's nothing, remotely underhanded. I'm not trying to have dark money. I just want to make sure that we can endorse candidates that we want to endorse and support policies.
Yeah, we have to be as transparent as we possibly can.
So we have to be a 501c4.
But the reality is, if we are going to run this organization, we want to be able to compensate individuals that are lending a hand.
Yeah. So
volunteering can only go so far.
Right. And so we would really love to be able to pay somebody to help us do volunteer coordinating, pay someone to help us do some of our outreach work, and it isn't that there aren't people that are dedicated to it. There are, but there are so many people that would love to be able to spend time with it, but they can't afford to not have an income. So donating to us is the kind of thing that would go to that. It doesn't go to me. It definitely doesn't go to him.
I'm just the Keebler elf. I don't get paid anything. Don't expect me to get money.
I mean, it's the kind of, it's just, it's just trying to get the name out and help the community simultaneously. That's all. That's all we're trying to do.
So I think it goes without saying that we've got to jump into news. And so we've got obviously a lot to talk about. And of course, right now, for many people, again, especially with not just with the holidays, but the fact that there's an excess of about 20 million people that apparently are on the cusp of being evicted. That would be obviously a really treacherous thing to happen in this country. And the fact that they were content to give us $600 and call it a day and literally go away. And then at the 11 o'clock hour, he totally decided to step in and say, we're giving everybody $2,000. And if we don't, we're totally not doing that. And so as far as I'm concerned, what we're trying to do right now is make sure that people understand that while Trump is obviously doing what he's doing because he's a chaos agent, he doesn't really care, but he is exposing the hypocrisy of our system. Now, leave it to Pelosi to jump right in and say, oh, we're totally agreeing with you. We definitely want to give people $2,000, but now it's on Mitch McConnell, to pass that $2,000.
But didn't she turn down the better deal?
She did. So
this is the thing.
The problem is, again, in this country, people have
short. Want Trump to get any credit, which is why she held out.
But people have short-term memory. The only thing they're going to remember is what's going on right now. And the only thing that's going on right now that I guess you would say even matters to anybody is the fact that we're at a deadline. The unemployment benefits expire, I believe, on Monday, and then people are likely to get evicted from their homes starting on next Friday or next Saturday, which is it next Friday or Saturday? Next Friday, so New Year's. So think about how devastating that is and how bad that will be, and how many people down here are potentially going to be stuck with that.
I'm just concerned they're going to do another another extension of something, and we're still having back rent being accruing for people.
Oh, 100%.
And so until
it's indentured servitude.
I mean, so the problem is, even if they keep extending it, it's people are just going to get further and further in the hole. And
Correct.
That's right. And so this is there needs to be a solution that is a solution right now that is better than that.
There are no solutions that are better, because they are basically daring people to get violent and get into the streets, and who knows how ugly that's going to be.
People are right now standing outside of Jeff Bezos' house in New York as we speak, surrounding his penthouse, protesting how he treats his workers. So
yeah, and he treats his workers as badly as anybody in this country. How else will you become the first trillionaire? The idea that that's even a discussion it's beyond sick. You think about the amount of money he's now making in interest. And
it's just gross. It's so exploitive. He's just so horrible. It's just, he is Dr. Evil. Are you doing news? What is happening here with this?
So we are doing news.
I see Nancy Pelosi, and sadly, I feel a little bad for Andrew. Why is he next to Nancy Pelosi?
Well, because he's part of news. So I don't know why you're talking about that.
All right, but it just sort of,
Yeah, well, Andrew's not going to be anywhere near him.
I feel a little bad for him to be next to Nancy Pelosi. That's all.
The bottom line is, we are hoping, against all hope, at noon tomorrow, there is actually a deal to benefit the people of this country that desperately need it. $2,000 a person. The only problem is you have people that are saying, well, we need to get $2,000 a month. Yeah, don't count on it. Just be grateful if we do get $2,000 tomorrow and we continue that fight going forward, because this is how it's going to be. You're going to need to get people out into the streets. That's the only way this type of change is going to happen.
I was just saying the other day, I really think that it needs to come a point where people are buying yellow vests. Actually, they sell them in 2 packs. It's a pack of 2. And I think that people need to be going to their representatives' houses. Imagine if 1 million people showed up at Mitch McConnell's house or Nancy Pelosi's house. We know where everybody lives. We need to start being, intrusive. And when people are out to eat, and so other people are like, well, no, you shouldn't disturb them when they're out with their family. No, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. You're a public servant. You work for us. You answer to us. You're not doing your job. And I actually think that the more we hound people and get all in their personal space, peacefully, mind you. But if you know that somebody is in a particular restaurant and you want to be standing outside and walking with signs so that they're not able to enjoy their meal, I have no problem with that.
And as M. Spence has pointed out, Seminole County is already enforcing evictions. So it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly. The only silver lining, as sick as this is to say in the state of Florida, especially down here, is that it is a subtropical climate. So people are not going to freeze to death, thank God, but it's still really bad. And so for people in other parts of the country who are in the dead of winter right now, what are they supposed to do? I've been to New York City, obviously that I'm from New Jersey. So in the wintertime, if I'm in the city, you better believe there's shanty towns all over the place and people who literally have to wrap themselves in garbage to stay alive.
It's just gonna get worse. So is that the Nancy Pelosi portion of the story?
That is the story
so
about.
I just got to keep us moving along.
Why is that?
Because so that we can do what we need to do.
No, Jordan's running a little late, so we're going to be able to extend our time. Okay. We don't have to worry about him jumping on.
In any event,
he will give me a text to let him know. Jordan right now is in the middle of another show, so he will be jumping on with us shortly thereafter. But again, Seminole County already enforcing evictions.
We got better offered for Jimmy, didn't we?
Well,
it's all good.
It doesn't matter. He's coming on here. We're the last of the night. Are you complaining right now?
Not at all.
Yeah, I think you are.
Well, you say anytime I have any commentary whatsoever is complaining. It's a little misogynistic, actually. You do that.
Well,
you do. If I happen to just have a comment about something,
I'm a white cis male. What is it again?
I'm a white cis male. You're a misogynist.
I'm a misogynist, a sexist, racist.
No, but you do
everything.
do that. You do that. If I make a comment, it's complaining. I wasn't complaining. I was commenting.
You're not too enamored with the other gentleman who's doing a show right now, but that's all right.
It has nothing to do with that.
All right. Well, we're not getting bumped. If we were getting bumped, that'd be different.
It doesn't matter. Jordan's got to do what Jordan's got to do.
That's right. And you'll be here soon. But in the meantime, we do have another story, which is very important to talk about. Not enough to actually put up a
I'm not sure how I feel about this. I have to process this.
So Andrew Yang, who is a friend of Jen's, endorsed her, communicates with her on the regular. He has decided to throw his hat in the ring to run for mayor of New York City. And I actually think that this is
it's awesome for New York City.
Yeah, it's awesome for New York City.
It's awesome for New York City.
But I would ask anybody in the chat, do you think it's more important that Andrew Yang is in Joe Biden's cabinet, or is it more important that he runs for an office? In this case, he would be running for an office for 2021. So he's actually not even waiting. He's doing something that not a lot of other people are doing. Nina Turner, for example, is running for an office where the election is going to be in early 2021.
Which is awesome.
The New York City's mayoral election, I believe, is in late June. So it's about a 7-month run right now for Andrew to be the mayor of New York City, which he is a resident of. Don't remember exactly where
it's funny because we talked about that. I talked about that with him. And he genuinely, it's funny because it wasn't his plan. And then people started sort of like putting that out there. And I guess he just wasn't averse to the idea. So it's interesting. But if that's something that he's doing, then he feels that that's the best way for him to be making a difference right now. He very much wants to serve, and that's important to him. So he's going to do whatever he feels is the best way to serve that he can. With do the most that he can do. So, and he's really bright. So if he's decided that this is what he should do, then it's probably a good move.
I also think that, New York, probably as any place in the country, could use a little humanity forward, can use UBI. I mean, think about the cost of living in that city.
He's definitely somebody that I would prefer dealing with a homelessness problem than say, I don't know, Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah, Michael Bloomberg is not concerned about helping the homeless, and neither is
we're comparing
de Blasio. And
we want somebody who actually thinks about things like, humanity.
The other thing is,
to be in charge.
And not only that, this doesn't get talked about enough, but how about the fact that Andrew is just such an affable person, and imagine him counterbalancing somebody like Cuomo, who will come off in such a bad light compared to somebody like Andrew.
Yeah.
I mean, he would really fit the bill. Is definitely something that I think you can distinguish between the two. I always felt that was maybe, one of the things that, from a, you want to say like a retrospective as far as, where did Bernie come up short? We obviously will talk about with Jordan about all the things that went on in Iowa, but just from a retrospective point of view, one of the things that always got talked about so much, and this is so much worse on the Democratic side than the Republican side. Democrats, especially the MSNBC, CNN crowd, they are so caught up in performance. They love the way people look on camera, talk on camera. That's why they get enamored with people like Kamala and Buttigieg. There is this thing about performance art that just drives them wild. It doesn't matter what they're standing for.
That's always been the case.
And they could not stand Bernie. They could not stand the senator for Vermont, not being such a kept guy. And he definitely was not somebody who was talking in a way that made people feel good. But then Andrew comes along, and Andrew's really got that affability that people really, really love. And he's
not polished.
No.
That's the thing. Like, he's not, you have people that are like Obama, who's clearly brilliant at being a politician. I mean,
That is
there's-
you can say what you want about him. His politicking is phenomenal, no question
So
about it.
I mean, but yet very polished, not understated in any way. And Andrew is just much more approachable. He is. He's very approachable. I mean, I think at one point Obama seemed that way, but I think that was also coming off of the previous administration. But Andrew is extremely approachable.
Yeah, Andrew is definitely the type of person that, you know, he has a way of, even if you don't agree with him politically, he has a way of not turning you off.
Yeah.
And that in itself,
he's just very likable. He's a very likable
he
person.
is. He doesn't burn bridges, which is
No.
something that a lot of people have a habit to do. And that's also something Jen has been very good at, is just maintaining those relationships, because not everybody is completely enamored with that.
And here's the thing, is that he is very, very aware of the concept that I always talk about building bridges between different groups of people. And his whole thing is about building coalitions and connecting people based on policy. So, you know, we can sometimes disagree on policy. That's easy. I mean, we can have so many easy compromises if we're all on the same page as what we're really trying to do. And, you know, I just think he's just extremely reasonable.
Yeah, he's definitely somebody who I think has an excellent chance to win. I think that it'll be very interesting to see if any of the New York delegation, whether it be city, state, or federal, decide to support him. I have no doubt that Hakeem Jeffries will, you know, stick his nose in the race and probably already has a candidate that he has in mind. Will AOC? And that's one of the reasons why AOC is on our Image of News and Amuse for this week.
What did she do? Because
she didn't do it. No, Alex didn't do it. Alex did not.
Alex.
Alex did not do anything. There's a reason why we have her on.
Okay.
Because again, Andrew is running for mayor of New York City.
Okay.
Who's the queen of New York City?
Hmm.
If Alex decides to get involved, it'd be very curious to see if she would actually support Andrew. I wouldn't be holding out for something like that. I think it would be wonderful if she did.
I'm not yet.
But she is somebody who literally could decide that race, because the ability to coalesce those votes in Queens and the Bronx could be so significant for Andrew.
And let's not forget our new friend, Lindsey Boylan.
Yes.
Who is running for Manhattan Borough president, and is a progressive as well, and was a BNC slate mate of mine. And so we definitely support Lindsey as well.
Yeah, there's no question, you know, and this is one thing.
This could all be a very good direction for New Yorkers.
It could. And you know what? I know that there was a lot of tension that took place between Lindsey and the Yang Gang, because they're, you know, going back to what happened during the primary race. I am insisting that you guys find a way to build bridge the divide, build that bridge.
Oh my God, dare I even know?
You know, she wasn't fully committed the way they wanted her to be when it came to UBI.
Well, look,
so listen,
whatever.
The truth of the matter is,
they have to do for their endorsements, but now everybody needs to.
As far as I'm concerned, I hope that Lindsey and Andrew find a way to form some type of a team. I think that they would do wonderful together. And I think that could make the difference, because Lindsey can hold it down in Manhattan. Andrew obviously can do very well, you know, in a lot of other places, especially in Queens.
Well, I think he's definitely has a lot more capability to do things there than he would be being like some talking head in Biden's
listen,
cabinet.
I think everything happened.
Him in Biden's cabinet. I mean,
I think it happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. I think if he was 100%, and if he wasn't Biden's cabinet, I think he would have been backbenched. That's the most dangerous thing that I think could have happened to Andrew. You don't want to stymie his voice,
right? And
his platform.
Then he's really beholden to the establishment.
And that's not that's not the Andrew we want. So in a way, them snuffing him is going to be very good for the movement overall, because you need those voices out there, like you have Nina in Ohio, having Andrew, bless you, in New York, in conjunction with the other voices that are there, like a Lindsey Boylan, and like AOC. There is this progressive changing of the guard that's taking place in Manhattan right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is all the more reason why, if somebody does decide to primary Hakeem Jeffries, this would be a great time to do it, because building those relationships in the city is key. There's no question that Hakeem is the heir apparent to Nancy Pelosi to be the next speaker. At least that's who they're grooming to be the next speaker. And we all know that that's not who we would obviously want to have as the next speaker. So having that progressive challenge from the left, could Hakeem be the next Joe Crowley? Maybe. He's certainly not likable. He's had a lot of negatives on his record.
New York is seeing a nice little shift.
They are.
It's a good
They
thing.
are. And it's time. It's time.
Yeah.
I mean, the great thing about it is that they're not fooled by the whole, Democrats versus Republicans nonsense, because Bloomberg was bad and so was de Blasio. It doesn't matter what party you're in. It matters what policies you're fighting for and how you engage the entire city. You can see somebody like Andrew being that leader who is really going to engage the populace of all walks of life.
Yeah, and the other thing that I really like about him is he will bring on people based on their knowledge and expertise and not based on cronyism,
Yep.
and who he owes something to for whatever thing happened before, or family member or whatever. So the people would be around him are going to be people that are science and math people and people that know things, and probably teachers regarding education policy, crazy things like that. So yeah, I mean, I think that he's an excellent choice.
So with News and Amuse now coming to a conclusion,
Okay.
we
What
are going to move into a
What do
very
we
unique
have?
topic, which we obviously have to talk about, because Jen, for the first time, I would think since you've been on social media, really caught the wrath of, you want to say, the K-Hive, the neoliberal
They don't like
contingency.
me.
They don't really
They
like
don't
Jen very
like me.
much. They kind of kept it at arm's length, but
I feel like they kind of treat me how I feel like some people treat Tulsi for some reason.
well, it's again,
Like
it's,
they just hate on me no matter what at this point.
no, it's there is no question that they're looking for a reason not to get
Yeah.
along. So I would ask everybody in the audience right now, everybody here probably supports Medicare for all, or at the bare minimum supports universal health care, whatever it's going to take for us to get there. Do you really care how it gets here, as long as it gets here?
Right.
Because that's really what it's about. We are so desperate right now. On average, we're losing 70,000
So,
Americans every year.
We had the audacity to suggest, do you want
This is coming up on the screen. I am going to let everybody see it. And it's I don't know any other way to describe it other than this is just a amusing statement
It's
of
pathetic.
sorts. It's not.
Okay, so this went out, and wait,
I can't.
close
Yeah.
that.
What am I
Just
closing?
hit that. There.
Okay. So this is the statement that was put out. Wouldn't it be great if Trump just decided to executive order Medicare for all before he leaves?
Crazy.
Now everybody with a little bit of common sense would probably say, wow, is that possible? Yes, it is possible.
It is possible.
It is by executive order in the lieu of a national emergency of health. You can implement a nationwide
Expansion
healthcare
of
expansion.
Medicare,
So
yeah.
in this case, you could expand Medicare to every citizen of the United States. Now, the neoliberal consultant class didn't like it.
No, because you cannot suggest that Trump do anything.
Well, first of all, you can't even suggest Medicare for all because that's Bernie's bill. You can't be
it's a
supporting
lot of
Bernie.
things, but they just don't like that we would be even suggesting that not only Trump could do something that was positive, but that we would be supportive of it. Like they can't wrap their little tribal heads around this.
No, and for them, it's definitely.
So they
Yeah.
were not liking that. But these are the same
No,
people
actually,
that,
I know there were a lot of people who did like it, but
no, I'm talking about
again,
the K-Hive people.
no, and it's not just that. There's always going to be somebody who's going to come on who is going
Do you
to.
have something particular you're looking for?
Yeah.
Because I don't need to be looking at the crown pictures.
No, I'm trying
scrolling?
to. Well, there was a lot of comments, so
Yeah.
it's going to be hard to find it. I'm trying to get through it right now,
All right.
but here's an example of what actually could happen. So I'm going to add this to the screen now for all of you guys to see. So this is very important. This is the article that basically will tell you, and it's in the American Prospect. Very, very important. So for those of you who need to understand why this is so vital and why it actually can happen, this is an opinion piece that came out. Well, we have it in Politico and in the American Prospect. So I'm going to show the American Prospect right now. And so for all of you that can see this, Biden can give everyone Medicare on his own. Okay, he won't do that. And you know what? Trump probably won't do it either. But that doesn't mean that
It's
it can't
not
be
possible.
done.
Exactly. And if that were the way to do it, look, again, these are the same people that wouldn't be happy if Trump pardoned Assange, even if they wanted Assange pardoned, because they don't want it to be Trump to do something. Like, that's how tribalistic these people are.
Yeah.
They cannot see past their own teams to see what's in the best interest of everybody. So yes, the point is, we opined that Trump could do an executive order instating Medicare for all. That was the suggestion, and it was really just, that's a muse.
Yeah.
That's a muse. We just, wouldn't that be lovely if
I
that
don't really
happened?
care if, again, this is the thing about Trump. Right now he's pardoning really nefarious people, including Jared Kushner's father, who is a loathsome criminal, to say the least. But we cannot ignore the fact that if you have the opportunity to get him to do something good, that you do it. That is what Citizens Uprising is supposed to do. You are supposed to build these bridges. You are not supposed to be at odds with other people. You need to be able to make sure that they understand that this is very important. And so,
Are we getting into?
so
okay.
needless to say, one of the things that has been brought to our attention in Florida politics, and one of the reasons why we're not really able to do anything on the positive side here in the state, is because we have a very large political consultant class, and they make a lot of money.
Is that who this guy is?
Well, he is a political consultant, among other things.
Okay, because you're getting there very roundabout. We were sort of in the concept of it with the.
So that's what it's. So again, that's what it's like at the state level. Now we're talking about what happens at the federal level, at the tippy top, when you're dealing with the absolute biggest of the bad, if you will. And so the person that decided to comment, I think a lot of you who are in progressive media probably know who this guy is. He decided to jump on this thread and literally start a shitstorm. And we're talking about none other than Horse Whisperer.
So this is our bootlicker of the week, but
and boy, did he earn that title.
So the Horse Whisperer, who
hey, Mal.
Who is his persona? Like, what is his normal thing? Hey, Mallory. What is his, who is this guy? So who is the Horse Whisperer?
I think for those that may not know, as I said, that's why there is a very large DC
and does he have some sort of
class
issue as to why there's something that's like a funny play on words with being the Horse Whisperer?
I don't know, but he's going to be beating he's beating a dead horse coming after Jen.
Okay,
I can tell you that much.
Apparently this is some sort of neolib, is what we're saying.
He's a very big neolib.
Okay.
He has been paid an exorbitant amount of money
to
work for the following organizations as a health care consultant, among other things. His clients include AT&T, Verizon, Hewlett-Packard, General Motors, BMW, Time Warner, Comcast, Pfizer, Abbott Labs, Bristol-Myers Squibb, Aetna, ADP, Avis, British Airways, Cisco, and many others.
Who he really is. Let's show who the Horse
I'm not gonna put his personal info. All right.
It's not. No, you don't have to put his personal information, but just you could say the name and.
His name is Michael Goodnow. That's his name. And so this is
the Horse Whisperer, guys. This is a neolib consultant person out there getting all against us with Medicare for all. We can't have that, not with his clientele.
So what ultimately ends up happening with somebody like this, so when Jen puts out a message and then you have a subtweet from a guy who has a following that is, I kid you not, 7 times the size of Jen's, and is basically in that class, is in the consultant, neoliberal DC consultant
and this is
class.
His brilliant commentary.
Yes. And so here's a man who lives in a very wealthy suburb of North Jersey. I happen to know where he lives, and I happen to know where he works. They get paid, and it's amazing how they're in the Democratic Party. Isn't that amazing?
Well, let's be. We don't have. Well, it's not a labor party.
It's not a labor party.
It's a corporate party.
So it is a corporate party, and so you have this guy who gets paid a lot of money, and he goes online and basically does everything, every which way, to smear the Bernie movement, to smear any type of a progressive uprising movement, and clearly
and he took the time. He's 7 times bigger than me, and he took the time to point me out.
Correct. And what
That's
I think,
really nice.
well, what I think it actually said,
Good.
but you see, I think that your message actually scared some people because it actually took off. It's got close to, I think, 4,000 likes now. I mean, there's no question that when a message really starts getting to people, that scares them because they don't want us getting along with people on the other
what's so
side.
hilarious about it, though, is by him putting that out to his followers, he's linking his followers to us.
Yes.
So thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. What's his last name?
Good know.
Thank you, Michael. Good know.
Good to know.
Good to know.
And so that's,
thank you for the props.
and he is, and I have to say this because, you know, I pay way too much attention to the garbage people in politics. And Jason calls on here. He's like, yeah, Jason knows all about
Hi,
this.
Jason.
And so, you know, if we were to make a list of the top 10 biggest douchebags in all of corporate
we could
consultant
have a
media, well, we could
Let's
have a
do
series.
Countdown.
But
Let's
if we
do a
were,
series
but if we're
of
being
top
honest with
10.
ourselves, of the worst people, like the horse whisperer may not be at Neera Tanden's level, but he's not that far off. Like he's in the room.
So you know what we should do? We could have for New Year's, we could do like a countdown of the top bootlickers. We could do like a top 10 bootlicker countdown of the year for 2020. And have it be like a nice, you know, homage to the level of bootlicking for the year.
There is no question though that if he felt the need to come on and make this statement,
I'll still never get to put my king bootlicker.
Well, let's
You're never letting me do that.
No, but let's look at it another way. Let's just say, for example, that you were wrong.
Yeah,
I'm
never wrong.
Oh, she's never wrong. Never tell a lady she's wrong, right? I don't know. But let's say that you were wrong. Let's say that there is actually no way for the chief executive to issue a national emergency and declare healthcare has to be a right of all people,
right?
Even if it's only for the pandemic. You know, when they're talking about, well, you don't know how to pass a law. Yeah, again, it's not about that. You're in the middle of a pandemic, and let's just say at the end of the pandemic that now it is no longer a national emergency and they could take Medicare for all off the table. Do you really think if this country is able to have a few months of universal health care that they're going to give it away? No, they're not.
Can we go back to that they don't know how to pass a law? See, that's the thing that's really fascinating. See, Congress is supposed to be the power that declares war. But yet, ironically, since how long now? It's 20 years. How long since the Patriot Act?
The Patriot Act was
the AUMA, the Authorization for Use of Military Action.
Well, the Patriot Act, I think, was 2002 or 2003.
Yeah,
like right around there.
So whenever and that was right around the same time. So
right around the same time as the war in Iraq.
Yeah,
right around there.
So then, so the president can unilaterally be at war with 8 countries without a congressional declaration of war, but the president can't issue health care for the people within our country. Yes, no, that's not how that works.
If he was, if it was at the bare minimum, was actually correct about it and was actually right by saying, well, actually, you're wrong. You can't do this. And he refers to you as this person. It's like,
well, they cannot name thou shalt who not be named. No. I kind of feel like, you know what? They're not worthy of saying my name at this point. And it's so funny because here in Broward, that we went through an entire election cycle, almost 2 years, without anybody in the local party really even acknowledging that our race was happening. Like they didn't not only mention my name, but they didn't even mention that Debbie had a challenger. So we're very used to not being named. I don't mind, but what he did do is put a nice little link to my Twitter. So,
which is always interesting. Yay. And you know what's funny is, and I checked it, it looks like you gained in excess of 200 additional followers because he decided, I think, to link you,
really?
Which I think is really interesting.
No, that's awesome. So we should send him like a fruit basket.
I don't know how much 200 followers is actually worth.
I don't know, but I like it. I think it's worth like a little fruit basket.
No, because
sincerely, this person.
What's the saying goes? The truth bends towards justice, or
I don't know, but I'm telling you, we sent him. We need to send him something and sign it. This person.
Yeah, this person. But I got to tell you, I don't think he liked, because he doesn't list his name. So what I think is interesting.
But we know who you are.
Yeah, and I think when you referred to him as Mike, I think he was. Oh, he's like, oh no, that definitely he didn't like that. He didn't like when you said his name. He's like, they're not supposed to know who I am.
Most people like it when I call them out by name.
Yeah, but you're not that. You see, you don't have that. you don't have that vitriol to go after him and be like, you freaking sellout, scummy.
No,
you know.
here's the thing: is that this is the cool thing about being me.
Yeah.
Is that when you're just like kind of real and honest and just be yourself and do your thing, people really can't call you out on shit.
That's
It's really, really easy. And so, like for me, people, if you want to try to find some skeletons on me, please have at it. Like, I wish that my life were more interesting. Like, there's just no there. So that's
I guess when Debbie felt that she didn't have anything to use against you, that the best thing that she could do was just say, we'll just ghost her.
Well, okay, at least let's just say this. There's no evidence of any wrongdoing anywhere in existence because we didn't have cell phone cameras back in the day. So I'm good. Like I'm good. There's no evidence of any wrongdoing.
No, and I guess if they could have found something to use against you, they probably would have done it by now. So they're just kind of limited in terms of that.
I told you I had that whole professional search done of myself when we decided to do this, like just to make sure, like, what could anybody find? It is the most boring thing ever. And all you could basically do, connect the dots of just the places I've lived and moved. That's the entire, like my entire history. And
it is somewhat, I mean, at this point, I just think that we really have to stick together. And that's what it's about. We have to continue to build these relationships because, again, if we were not a threat, they wouldn't feel any need to come after her or after anybody else. The problem is that once he got involved and his hundreds of thousands of followers, he had hundreds, but they had hundreds of people flowing in. Oh God, I tell you, you know why we need Medicare for all? Because of all the mental health, the mental anguish that people have to deal with social media all day long.
Thanks,
you all need to be going and speaking to a mental health professional. That would be good for everybody. Because that's really, what I think everybody needs, quite frankly. We need universal health care for everything, but especially for the ability to go speak to a shrink.
We do. We really need that. Yeah.
If you guys haven't hit the like button, hit it now. Share, subscribe. Make sure everybody's watching, especially on Facebook and YouTube. YouTube especially. YouTube is the most important place. We are almost at 1,500 subscribers. Can you believe it? This little show.
The other thing that we have to keep reminding people is when you watch the videos, you got to just let it play. Let them play. Even if you feel a little bored and you got to step away. If you have the ability to let it play because we actually get watch hours, amount of hours that are clocked watching. And we need to reach, 4,000?
4,000 watch hours. That's where we're at. Yeah.
Before we can do super chats and start bringing in some money. So that's kind of where we are. So we could definitely use, if you're going to put on the video, let it watch. Just let it go.
Yeah. And so again, I am cautiously.
I try to be as interesting as possible for as long as I can.
Well, we are. I mean, I think we do a pretty good job for a 2-man show. I'm even talking about like an interview. Well, no, but even on the interview, even on our interviews, right? Like it isn't only on the lives; it's on anything. No, and again, there is this need to continue the conversation because all too often after the election, everybody just kind of goes away, and we know that Biden is not going to play ball. He, again,
so far there have been 2 or maybe 3 good cabinet picks.
Well, he did make you know what? I didn't add that to the story today. And since our wonderful guest, Jordan Chariton, is running a little late, he's actually on another show. He'll be here in a few minutes. We can talk about one final story, which I thought was very good today. Joe Biden did actually make a second very good pick for his cabinet. Deb Haaland for Secretary of the Interior is definitely the one pick he's made so far that we can all universally agree was very good. Marcia Fudge for Deb Haaland. And now he has picked Miguel Cardona to be the new Secretary of Education. Yeah. Now, I think we can all agree.
This is from Connecticut.
The lowest bar that you could possibly have. We have always agreed. I think universally everyone would agree. The worst appointment of the Trump administration by far was Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education.
The worst.
I mean,
she did the most damage in the least amount of time.
Oh my God.
Terrible. Absolutely horrible. She needs to go far away. So, but this guy, he's what, the head of the education department in, I think, Connecticut.
Yes.
He's Connecticut.
No, he's done, look, I've read his bio. He's got a lot of good stuff on his record. He is not against charter schools, but he's not an advocate for them either.
It's as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, right now, that's all you can hope for if his focus is going to be on public education funding. And I've told a lot of people this, regardless of what you think of Andrew Gillum, the one thing he absolutely unequivocally would have been much better on in the state of Florida compared to Ron DeSantis, he would have been infinitely better on education.
Yeah.
He had the teachers behind him. He was advocating
There's
for higher
definitely things
wages.
He would have. I mean, look.
Yeah.
But DeSantis,
And on the Democratic side, that is one thing you can say when it comes to public education, they are absolutely better than Republicans. No one is going to dispute that. And the fact that you're now bringing in somebody who is not only going to be better than Betsy DeVos, he may be a lot better. And that's what we need right now.
Yeah.
You got to take your wins where you can get
but
them
of course,
and build
what are
on
they
that.
all talking about him? Do you know what they're all talking about him? That he'll be the first Puerto Rican in the cabinet. That's what they're focusing on. That's what they're talking about. That's what matters to them.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you know
See,
what? Let them have,
talking
again,
about his policy.
let them have their identity politics. We'll have the
So
policies. And
frustrating.
as long as his policies are good, wonderful. And if he happens to be Latino, that's fine too.
Whatever.
Doesn't matter.
I don't care. You know what? I'm not even saying Latino anymore because a lot of people don't like it.
No.
And you know what? Why would people like that?
Well, look at how many people who were Latino voted for Trump. Look at how many people who were Black voted for Trump.
I
This
just don't
time.
like even the term Latino.
No, it's but again,
it's
identity.
So like monolithic.
But you know what? Identity politics is becoming
It's
the
frustrating.
last bastion that they've got
It's frustrating
left.
because
They don't have anything else.
like I'm all great with there being. How is that legal? Yeah, how is that legal? How is that
Exactly.
legal? How is it legal that Dick Cheney was getting like stock benefits from Halliburton while we were in a war for profit? How is that ever possible? But you know.
Yeah.
And then didn't get prosecuted for it. So I've given, you know, at this point, that revolving door between our military industrial complex and our government, it's obscene.
No, it is obscene.
And it isn't just that industry, but I think that's hands down the worst. Hands down the worst.
And again, we plea with people who, let's say, supported Trump. He didn't drain the swamp. He had his own swamp.
Yeah.
And now the people that were in the swamp before Trump got there are all coming back in.
It's very simple. If people are doing things with a profit motive that is not in the best interest of the collective of us, right? Then that's the swamp. Then they're feeding their own swamp. It doesn't matter. So, you know, if it's whether, I mean, look, Debbie takes money from Honeywell. And I mean, she takes money from the military industrial complex. So, you know, well, she's also very hawkish. So that at least
that's
her
putting it nicely.
Money at least coincides with her ethos. But yeah, I mean, this is a serious problem.
Yeah, no, there's no question that, you know, Wasserman Schultz is, you know, we can talk for hours on end about how bad she is. But one thing we do have to mention.
This is not good.
Yeah, one thing we have to mention is the fact that this particular stimulus bill that Trump did veto. So you can't really say, well, you know, woulda, shoulda, coulda. But the truth of the matter is it was 5,500 pages long. First of all, you know, they've been writing that bill for the past how many months? 6, 7, 8 months.
Yeah.
They've been writing this. And Wasserman Schultz votes yes on the bill that they don't even know what's in it. This is, remember, when they passed Obamacare, Nancy Pelosi, we have to pass it before we know what's in it.
They always do that. But look, none of them read the Patriot Act and they signed away our constitutional rights. They signed away our 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights, and they didn't even read it. They didn't even read it. So no, they don't read things. They don't read things.
And everything is a slow drip. You know, you can't look back at Reagan's tax cuts and know at that exact moment how things were going to completely, you know, create the wealth gap that was really, you know, becoming a really big problem in lieu of everything that transpired post Kennedy's assassination, going into, you know, Southeast Asia, and then obviously the major energy crisis that took place in the late 70s. So then Reagan gets in, does the massive tax cuts, and what I always point to is the top marginal tax rate was 72% leading up to Reagan.
He even knew that he had to raise the marginal tax rate. I mean, well, it's capitalism can only survive if there are consumers.
That's true.
This is not rocket science.
No.
It really isn't that complicated. So if people don't have money to consume, then eventually capitalism ceases to exist.
You do all the tax cuts. Then you go to another war under Bush. Then you bring Clinton in and you do every form of deregulation known to man.
Wow.
Then you bring Bush in and you get involved in 2 ridiculous wars. Then you bring in Obama, get involved in even more wars. And now you bring Trump in.
But
and
they're
he doesn't.
drone wars. They're not boots on the
So
ground.
that makes it better, I guess, right? Only in the drone wars,
And
kill.
he was our first black man.
Is it 90%? It's like a 90% kill rate of civilians with
I
the drones. It's so, again.
And right now, like watching him on, I can't. we can't go there about him right now because I feel like it's not going to serve me to go off on him. But I'm like, I have some serious.
No, Obama's selling a book right now, and Trump is selling a BS
issues.
idea that we're somehow, you know.
I'm so displeased.
So, you know, and again, it's so
biggest disappointment. Biggest disappointment.
And we're in an even bigger disappointment now because we know that we're going to be heading for 4 years at a minimum of this endless stagnation, which is why over time, we really need to be making a concerted effort to reach out to as many people as possible. For those of you who have not seen Jen's podcast with Tim Pool, I highly recommend you check it out. There were over 500,000 people that saw that podcast. Now, granted, a lot of them do support Trump, but a significant amount of them are actually Democrat, progressive Democrat. And
you have to, though, go to Tim Pool's page to see it.
Which is fine. And again, it's a long podcast, but a lot of clips are thrown in. You know, and well, yeah, we'll put that up for you, Mal. And again, the importance of speaking to Tim Pool.
I'd be satisfied with a Julian Assange.
And I got to tell you guys, because I was there, and let me tell you, the comments from the really hardcore psycho Trump supporters, it was bad. It was bad to the point in which some of Jen's friends were watching and be like, "I can't take this. I gotta say something."
I think I got called Karen probably.
Yeah, they were calling Jen Karen. I'm like, oh my God, you guys really don't know how bad it is on the Democratic side if you think she's a Karen.
I'm Karen.
They have no idea what they're missing on. That's, you know, like I can't speak to that. So, but the reality is a lot of people really liked her message, and we got 400 new subscribers to the channel.
Yet we still, of course, got crap.
Yeah.
Because people really don't want to build bridges and build coalitions. They want to stay in their little teams. People like tribalism.
Well, I think,
and that's the hardest part of what we're doing. It isn't even policy. At this point, the hardest part of what we're doing is just getting everybody to just make nice enough so that we can have nice things, because it's like everybody's just fighting over every little thing. And that's why nothing can get done.
Case in point about the fact that you suggested that Trump passed an executive order to give everybody Medicare. And it's like,
how dare you do that?
You have to do whatever you can in order to get it, which is also why force the vote has become a huge talking point, because the progressives do have leverage right now with Pelosi's speakership. And everyone's like, oh, well, you know, it's a good idea, but that's not how you should do it. No, you have to treat politics like it's a blood sport.
It is, but see, they keep trying to make friends, and they can't.
It
seems like they're not realizing that no matter what they do, these people aren't going to like them. I would like to also say, Ryan, yes, Trump is an 80s Democrat.
Yeah.
And M. Spence, we know Tim Pool he's friends with Joe Rogan.
Yes.
So they're actually, you know.
He's friends with a lot of important people. And again, stop.
Can you not say important people?
Well, known people.
Thank you.
Okay. He's a totally important person. But anyway, the point is, you have to reach out. You have to build these relationships, because I'm telling you, a significant portion of Trump's base are working class people. Are a lot of them bigoted, angry? Yeah, they are. Because guess what? Our country sucks right now, and they don't know who the hell to point the finger at. And for a lot of them, they're not well educated. They live in rural parts of the country, and they have no one who gives a damn about them. They don't. So we have to find a way to build those relationships. And if Jen can be that arbiter of being able to do that, wonderful. I think Andrew Yang's an arbiter of doing that.
A lot of the Trumpy people have liked me, you know, other than the hostiles on the Tim Pool show.
Yeah, you're always going
to. First of all, I have a certain image in my head of the kind of people that those are. And I know it's probably like a very stereotypical thing, so I'm not going to get into that. But I think also
people really like me. They really think I'm incredible.
They
totally think I'm really incredible.
Live in an echo chamber, and in a way that it's like I'm just such an outsider. I mean, I can't see how anything I said was so particularly offensive. So they'd already decided not to like me, because
I would say the biggest reason they did. What was the biggest reason they didn't like you? What was the number one reason that the majority of the people who were dissenting didn't like you on Tim Pool's show?
What was it? I don't even remember.
You voted for Biden.
Oh, that I voted for Joe Biden.
So the fact that she voted for Biden was oh my God, so how you see you're just the cause of the problem. Well, again, if you want to change it, you know, for those people who are actually convinced, poorly, I might add, that Trump actually had the election stolen from him. The only person who had an election stolen from them in this country is Bernie Sanders, and it happened twice. So as far as I'm concerned, if you are really concerned about election integrity, there are two things that you can do, and I'm going to put it in the chat right now. Ranked choice voting and hand-marked paper ballots.
I mean, that's ultimately what we really need to do. And it's one of those things that, again, there needs to not be a profit motive in. This is a function of our republic. It's always been really weird to me that private clubs, and yes, the DNC and the Republican Party, these are private clubs, and they control our electoral process. It never really seemed right to me. But so then you add on top of that there's this profit motive in the machines that they use and in the mechanisms that they employ. So forget that it makes it easier to cheat and hard to track and all that.
Yeah.
There's a profit motive in that system. So whenever there's a profit motive, you got to be somewhat suspect. And to me, the mechanism that is the basis of our republic should not be linked to a profit motive.
No.
Just for me. And I'm not saying that I'm not a communist. I'm not even a socialist, but I think a function of our republic should be independent of profit and independent of party. And that's really where I'm at. So the whole concept to me that these private clubs control our elections is absurd. It's just absurd. And I know they do it with but they control the primary. Yes, well, you control the primary, but then you have states that are closed primary states. So essentially, unless you're in the club, you don't get to even participate in the primary, which I still question the constitutionality of that. I always have. I have since
well, that's one thing.
That's weird.
That's definitely one thing that Jordan is going to talk about, is the fact that with what has actually transpired, with what actually happened in the Iowa caucus, there is talk, and there should be lawsuits brought about the DNC relinquishing any power that they have over the primary process. And that is why it needs to happen. Yeah. Because it's a private organization and these are supposed to be public elections. If we could get to publicly funded elections, that would be lovely. I mean, and that's again, we're fighting for that.
But that's really the problem. I mean, and even on our countywide level, the fact that our supervisor of elections is a partisan position is very strange to me.
Yeah.
And we happen to have a SOE that is right now that's coming in, Joe Scott. I think he's fine. I think he'll do a great job. I have no issue with him whatsoever. I just don't think that should be a partisan position anymore, that I think that the private clubs of the Democrats and Republicans should be controlling our process. It just doesn't, it just doesn't seem kosher to me.
Well, that's also what ultimately ends up happening, which I still insist. Now, Jen will tell you that the local Democratic clubs are really feckless in a lot of ways, especially because of the age that is being run by. No ageism here, but it's, we have to recognize that people have been doing this for a long, long time.
And quite honestly, it's so.
And a number of them have been protecting Wasserman Schultz for decades.
But
so we all know that that's part of the problem.
But it's not entirely that, because then you're ignoring the fact that the young Dems here are basically the same.
Well, they're all waiting. They're trying to get their jobs. So they're doing the walking. They're playing the game, as they say. But I will say this, and I'm not going to name any names, but we have a friend who is also attempting to run for office here. And and one of the people that works with them attempted to reach out to one of the local clubs to see if they could speak. And when they found out who that person is running against, they basically told them to piss off. So we've got a lot to work on, a lot to do, but we've got a very special guest we're about to bring into the studio. He is not only a great journalist, he's also a great friend, and he is as good as it gets in the journalism game of all politics you could think of.
So for anybody paying attention to my little graphic that I put out the other day, Jordan is actually a journalist.
Yes.
That's somebody who actually does investigative reporting and is like a primary resource. And I try to say sort of, journalism for dummies kind of thing. So we people know the difference between journalists and talking heads. And actually, Jordan's a talking head as well, but he does do his own reporting.
Yeah, but his talking's pretty good. So I think we can we'll live with the talking head. And I think you really knocked it out of the park, my friend. Yeah. I had an opportunity to look a little bit at the story today, and I'm not going to dive into it. This is your wheelhouse. So everybody, this is Jordan Chariton from Status Coup. If you are watching, hit the like button, subscribe.
Look, I did my little chalk.
Did a little design for you in the background, my friend.
We're very high tech here with the chalkboard.
And
where's my purple shirt? I don't get one.
You're getting one soon. I'll get you one. Well, totally.
Well, because we need to get our jerseys. I'm getting generational change jerseys.
Get you a jersey. We were watching your website and saw the merch, and you've done a great job. Before we even get started, do you think that having mugs is a good idea? I mean, is it a good ROI? Just out of curiosity.
That would be Jen who knows that, but I'm pretty sure we're making next to nothing on our merchandise.
That's the thing. Exactly. It says it. All right. So everybody, Jordan's going to talk about this big story that he just uncovered and put together. And it's, it goes back to Iowa, and we knew that we knew something was awry. Like, we knew something wasn't good. We just knew that. And I think this will be more of like a concrete explanation as to what happened in Iowa.
And again, for anybody who is on the, everything is rigged and everything is stolen bandwagon, especially with the Trumpers and whatnot, this is what real electoral fraud looks like. This is what this is. So Jordan, take it away.
Yeah, so I was on the ground in Iowa and New Hampshire, so everybody knows what happened in Iowa. I think what people didn't realize was really the behind the scenes of like how much the DNC basically rigged it. I mean, to me, it goes beyond fraud. It requires like a criminal investigation. So basically, after the Iowa caucus, there was an investigation put together into what went wrong. And incidentally, the person investigating was a former U.S. attorney appointed by President Obama. So that was who was investigating.
No conflict of interest there.
No,
right.
What could go wrong?
So the investigation was so thorough that essentially the DNC did not cooperate. The DNC would not speak with the investigators. The investigators would not actually compel them to give over documents, emails, phone logs, anything. So when the report, air quotes, the report was released last week, at the same time the report was released, there was a closed session, which means closed to the public, meeting among the Iowa State Democratic Party. So, I've built up sources over the years on the campaign trail. So I was able, through some sources, to get my hands on the transcript from that private Iowa State party. And basically the attorney that was doing the investigation said a lot of things in that meeting that were not made public in the Politico report, which the Politico report kind of read like a DNC press release. So essentially what happened here was the Democratic National Committee basically, first of all, the app, the Democratic National Committee wanted this app. Sources that I have indicated that they were pretty ticked off and not happy with how 2016 went, a little too close to comfort in terms of Bernie almost won Iowa. I mean, I would say he probably did. So they wanted to kind of muddy the waters a little bit. So they created an app, which never happened before, like for forever and ever. They just did it the old fashioned way. They called in via phone from the precincts. And
you need an app. You have to have an app. How could it be done without an app?
Right. So the DNC asked the state party to basically have a software developer create an app. The app was developed by veterans of Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign, so no conflict of interest there. Then 2 weeks before the Iowa caucus, the DNC mandated that the app named Shadow, the company, create a whole new software so that the DNC could have access to the real-time raw numbers coming in the Iowa caucus.
Have they ever had that before? Why did they get that?
As far as I know, no. And as far as I know from talking to people involved with New Hampshire politics, Nevada, the DNC was not heavy-handed like that in those other states. They were not demanding to see the real-time numbers.
Right.
In America, even though I think it's a bad system anyway, the system's supposed to be each state is run by the state parties, not the DNC. So the DNC mandated that we want to see the numbers before they're made public. By the way, let's just remember, this wasn't in my story, but all of this happened at the same time, like for the first time, the Des Moines Register poll, which is kind of like the holy grail of Iowa politics.
Yeah.
Everybody, like political nerds, are waiting on the Saturday before the caucus for the final Des Moines Register poll. That inexplicably gets spiked because Pete Buttigieg complains that one person polled wasn't given Pete Buttigieg as a choice.
And who's to say that wasn't an inside job? Who's to say that actually happened?
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't.
Well, I can't say for certain, but I'll say that I'm pretty sure that if Bernie's campaign called the Des Moines Register and complained that one of our supporters was polled and not given us as an option, that the poll would have went out without a problem. And the poll was eventually leaked, it showed that Bernie was in first place, Pete was in third place. So we go to Iowa caucus night. This private meeting that I got the transcript of actually also revealed they actually had the results on the night of the caucus. They had the same results on the night of the caucus that ended up coming out 5 days later. It basically showed a tie between Buttigieg and Bernie, like one.
So they stalled it. They stalled it.
Yeah. Basically, Perez told the state party, do not report the results, because this software that the DNC made them create 2 weeks before the caucus, shocker, there was a coding error. So the DNC, the numbers they were getting were I guess, wrong. But you got to backtrack. And James Sogby, who's been with the DNC for 28 years, he's a Bernie supporter. He said to me for the story, like, why did the DNC need to see the numbers?
Yeah.
Why didn't they just trust the state parties? So, I just report what I know. I've never heard of that before. I've never heard, I do know that, who else wants to see numbers before, like during elections? The mafia.
Yeah. Well,
like seriously, like JFK's election, the mafia was involved. That's just historical. Mexican drug cartels have wanted to see the real-time numbers so that they could intimidate voters at the polling places not to vote. I mean, this is just so. Yeah. Bottom line, Tom Perez blocked it. It was delayed for days. In that delay, Pete Buttigieg went out on the night of the caucus, claimed victory. Corporate media pushed this narrative that he won. I saw the the domino effect from there, because in Iowa, where I went next, Pete got a 10% polling bump.
Yeah, because people don't realize the snowball effect of this. They don't understand that. It's like the one thing is not an isolated thing. It doesn't work that way. When you mess with Iowa, it messes the whole chain of events.
Well, I mean, honestly, to me, listen, Bernie's campaign made mistakes. Bernie made a lot of mistakes. I've addressed it with my audience. But at the end of the day, let's just say they reported the results on that night, and it was basically a tie. So Pete Buttigieg can't go out like claiming victory because it's a tie. Oh, yeah. The media would have spun it. They would have said, wait a minute, Bernie should have won because he was close with whatever. But Pete Buttigieg does not get to do that. And I went to New Hampshire, and this is anecdotal, but a lot of politics is anecdotal. I went to a high school 2 days before the New Hampshire primary Pete event. It was like people around the block, and I interviewed them online, and most of them said, yeah, I wasn't really considering him, but after Iowa and winning, I want to check him out. So it's like manufacturing consent
bias. It's like confirmation bias.
Right. Manufacturing consent is a real thing. I think, frankly, Bernie's campaign was asleep at the switch. I think they should have been in court challenging that. So, and people, I don't know if everybody knows this, but the DNC is actually a private corporation. It's not a governmental body. So essentially there's no real, their lawyer in court, if you recall the DNC fraud lawsuit from 2016, openly said, technically we could go in the back with cigars and choose the nominee. Yeah. So this had a really downstream effect. Pete, the polling bump Pete got, Bernie only won New Hampshire by a point.
Exactly.
And the media again spun that. So I think, to me, if the results come out that night in Iowa, if it's basically tied, Pete doesn't get that huge bump, Bernie probably wins New Hampshire by 3 to 5 points. Then let's look at the other downstream effects. This is all shoulda, coulda, woulda, but I think it's likely. There's probably a lot more pressure on Elizabeth Warren to drop out after New Hampshire if Bernie wins New Hampshire a little bit more convincingly. She just lost Iowa. She lost the state that's in her backyard. So Bernie probably would have won New Hampshire closer to 4 to 5 points without this narrative that Pete Buttigieg won. From there, who knows? Nevada could have been bigger. Who knows if he would have won? There was a lot of other things that happened. But I think that overall, what my story shows, and there's other things in that private meeting, Iowa State Party members are basically grilling the attorneys like, what do you mean the DNC didn't cooperate? Like, what does that mean? How do you have an investigation without their cooperation? And the investigators were basically like, yeah, no, they wouldn't cooperate, but didn't really give any specifics. There was other things the Iowa State Party members openly said, like the DNC is trying to get rid of us. They want to strip Iowa of its first in the nation caucus status, which the people of Iowa take really seriously.
Yes,
They
do.
find it
Yeah.
prestigious.
Yeah.
But overall, I think if you read the story, it will show, we just had a fucking criminal investigation for 4.5 years into the Russian boogeyman. I wasn't necessarily against it. I was against the media propaganda surrounding it. But if you're going to have a criminal investigation into basically unproven speculation on Trump's ties with Russia, then why aren't we going to have a criminal investigation into actual proven? I mean, I've reported what the lawyer revealed. Why aren't we going to have a criminal investigation into what was Tom Perez's role into this? What was other executives' role into this? We also remember with this delay, there were people on Twitter that were just Bernie volunteers that were at these precincts posting their sheets saying, wait a minute, why is this precinct reported as going to, I don't know, Buttigieg or Biden when I have the sheet right here and Bernie won this precinct? So I don't even know if the actual numbers they reported were accurate because it was a gigantic mess. And I really think that was the point, Jen and Peter. I think the point among the DNC was to, they talk about Russia wants to sow chaos and confusion. I really think that was the point because, I mean, they're not stupid. They saw Bernie's campaign was even stronger from 2016 to 2020, more volunteers, more grassroots fundraising, better in the polling. They saw Biden's kind of politically dead carcass limping along. They tried to prop up Kamala. That didn't work. Tried to prop up Pete. That wasn't working. They tried to prop up, everybody. So I really think, listen, progressives are exhausted. There's a pandemic. There's forced to vote. There's trying to get the real stimulus money. There's so many things. But at the end of the day, to me, I think all those other things are moot if we can't guarantee free and fair elections. Because, Jen, it's not only about electoral politics, but electoral politics is important. And I think looking forward, let's say it's 2024, hypothetically, it's Nina Turner as the candidate. If the DNC is not held accountable, if they're not removed from having any part of this, how do you assure thousands of volunteers that volunteered for Bernie and other campaigns, to be fair, millions of people that donated, how do you make sure they're not defrauded?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And again, the way I see it and the way I saw it, a while back, as Jen has built an amazing volunteer network around the country. We had people from down here that actually went up to Iowa. And I can distinctly remember speaking to a couple of them who said, we had a couple that spoke Spanish and they were going out to places outside of Des Moines. And they were already, prior to caucus night, dealing with issues of people being told to go to certain, locations for the caucus that were incorrect. They were already getting misdirection, and we were trying to get that word out there as fast and furious as possible. But talk about what I think is really the main issue here, and that is the power of the corporate media gatekeeper and how they stop a story like this from ever really taking shape, because we knew that things were going on. We know that if Bernie rightfully won Iowa, he would have caught so much momentum. And let me say this, by the time you get to Super Tuesday, but the time you get to South Carolina, if what had actually should have happened did happen, the weight of Buttigieg's endorsement wouldn't have meant nearly as much to Biden. That also would have played a role. And I think if Bernie had rightfully won Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada, it would have basically been a foregone conclusion. So please talk about what I still consider to be the biggest detriment to our movement on the progressive side really growing at this point, and that is the power of corporate media and how it influences people to ignore the things that really matter.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have to look at corporate media just institutionally, the difference between corporate media and I'm just going to use me as an example and how I do things. So if you want to get to the truth of things, do you go ask for comment and ask for the truth or get your information from the politicians, from the DNC, from the police department? Because for years, Jen, you've been an advocate for criminal justice reform. Media just reported whatever the police told them, right?
Right.
So I do it the other way, where I get my information first and foremost from activists on the ground. from residents on the ground, from just citizen leaders. And you have to vet it. I mean, there's a lot of misinformation that goes on, but you generally get to the root of what's going on, not from like your sources at the DNC or in the Trump administration or the Biden administration, but from like people in communities. Like when I went to Flint for the first time, I didn't first try to speak with the mayor of Flint or, you know, the politicians. I spoke with the residents. I spoke with the activists, because that's where you find out where the bodies are buried. Yeah. So there's an institutional flaw, and it's intentional because corporations have bought the media. Thank you, Bill Clinton, for that. That basically, like when reporters are on the campaign trail, they're not actually with people. They're just following the candidates and the candidates' posse, their campaign advisors.
But, you know, they're controlled with what they're allowed to say anyway. So all they're going to be allowed to put out there is what's been approved by that campaign and whatever the corporate donor allows. So it doesn't even matter if they're there or not there. They might as well not be there. I don't even see why they bother following them around. They're just going to repeat their talking points.
I can't tell you. I mean, I think I told Peter this story, but like when I was with TYT in 2016, I would go around covering Bernie, but I covered Hillary's campaign a bit. I covered Trump. I got the therapy bills to prove it. And I literally, I'll never forget it. I would just be in the crowd interviewing people, my cameraman with me in the crowd. And I was the only reporter in the crowd interviewing people before and after. Like I would look back and there would be the press stage where the cameras are, the reporters are, and they'd just be standing there on their phones. And in some, to their benefit of the doubt, also like they travel with the campaign and the candidates get there like late. But even when there was more time for these reporters to actually speak with people, they just didn't. They were just standing on the press stage, tweeting this. There is we talk about the disconnect between politicians and the people they represent. There's no connect at all between reporters and people. Yeah, they'll do their focus groups like on CNN and this and that, which are highly staged. They'll do their town halls where, frankly, these questions are scripted. But I mean, I can't even tell you. I mean, from Flint to other places I've been, even at press conference I've covered. Like I'm usually activist press conferences, not government press conferences.
Yeah,
I'm always one of the few people there. I remember there was a lead crisis in Cleveland. Nobody knows about it. Like 100 children had high lead levels in like 90 days. And activists created a press conference at the halls of City Hall. Even the local media wasn't there. I was there just because I was passing through. I was coming back from Flint. So Pete, you asked me about the corporate media. They are basically incentivized to ignore the people who know what's going on the ground. I found out what was going on in Iowa. I was there, but my sources were not coming from the DNC or the state party. They were coming from precinct chairs that were there. They were coming from not just Bernie people, but other campaigns that were seeing abnormalities. My sources come from activists and others. Yeah, there's some kooky activists. You've met them. Standing Rock, I had to sift through.
There is no shortage of kookiness on the left.
No, we've got, and again, it's that balancing act you have to do, because a lot of the kooky ones want to be involved very thoroughly, but it's that temper that you gotta temper it to some degree.
And I get a lot of emails and text messages from them, and they're good people.
I'm sure, and they like to say they're your friend and they know you on a personal level.
Jordan, this comment from Jason, I know have you ever met Jason?
Jason Call?
He ran for Congress in Washington. He was one of my BNC slate mates, but
I did not.
He is commenting about what it would be really nice would be to have an actually progressive network. And I know you had talked about that in the past, and the idea of people just putting their egos aside and coming together to sort of form some sort of like block. I mean, because I think that, and we're seeing it right now.
It's a great segue. It's a great segue.
The left eats their own. It's very frustrating. I don't even really want to talk about
that. But it has to be discussed from the standpoint of, you don't have to talk about Jimmy. I think you just have to talk about what's really going on right now. I think listen, we're friendly with a lot of these people, that, but I do think that there is, for one, I do think there's a degree of jealousy. They don't like the fact that, he's basically becoming a hot commodity of sorts, and he's going to get a tremendous swoon from that in financial ways and other ways. But the reality is, if it's a great idea and it's worth pushing, there is this tendency on the progressive left to always want the pure circumstance. it's never going to happen that way. It's going to just happen organically. Like Chris Hedges says, it's just going to happen. You're not going to know when it's coming. It's just going to be there. And if something sparks and people really get behind it, there isn't this like universal great idea. Let's get behind it. Let's all work together and make it so.
It would be nice.
So, what is your take at this point? Because we've been paying close attention. You're like, look, this is a great idea. And I don't really care what you think of Jimmy. We need to be working in conjunction with one another and figuring out a way to make Medicare for all possible, as important as any issue that we're dealing with right now.
I think a lot of this goes to actually, believe it or not politics, but psychology and human, the characteristics of human beings. So an example, and I'm not saying this out of bitterness. I'm just saying this because it's true. Right. When I was at the Young Turks, for example, it was called TYT Network, but there wasn't actually a lot of elevation of anyone other than Cenk. And whatever, like, I'm not saying he's a bad, whatever, there's issues there. But my point is, from my standpoint, and I'm doing my job at Status Coup long-term, Jen's doing her job, my co-founder, Jen Dies, who's sick with COVID. We're doing our jobs if long-term, we're not the faces. You're either in this for clicks and Twitter followers and to grow fame, or you're in this to achieve goals. So to me, I have a healthy ego. Like, who doesn't like credit and, being followed? But at the end of the day, to me, I want to be able to cover more stories everywhere. And the only way I could do that is to hire other reporters, because I'm only one person. I want to expose the corruption, not just in Flint, but elsewhere. But I need more people. I need to create new quote unquote stars, so to speak. So for me,
you need a reporting network. You need you need like a team.
So to me, if you put Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball and Status Coup and name whatever, we could debate who gets to be at the table. But if you put them together, of course, everybody could have their individuality also. But when you create a stronger network that has a variety in programming, there's Jen, you did that pyramid, which I appreciate being on. You got commentary, analysis, investigative reporting, maybe comedy.
People got so offended by that, as if there's no value in entertainment, which there is value in entertainment, and there's value for all of it. But I think we need to be real about what a source is versus what is commentary. And it's just so ridiculous how people it's this tribalism. People just feel the need to just be so protective of someone they like, regardless of reason.
Yeah, we're entering that territory right now where people feel that you can't criticize Alex, and that's dangerous. It really is, because she's making a lot of missteps lately.
I can't tell you how many fucking it happened this morning. And it's not because anyone's bad or ill will, but I have a lot of people constantly. When I was at Standing Rock, I had people asking me to help them organize events. When I'm, all over, I've had people asking me to personally get involved in the activism, and I've had to say, I can't do that because that's crossing a line. And I think my journalism is my activism, but I can't it's not
understand that anymore.
Right.
There's no that anymore.
Yeah.
Right. It's not ethical for me. No. For example, in MSNBC, it's totally, all these corporate outlets, it's totally ethical to go have drinks and go to Christmas parties with the people you're supposed to be covering and hold accountable. You couldn't catch me dead. But my point is, I think in the progressive sphere, and I've said this for years, it's gotten to a point where it's a little bit like a high school fucking clique. And
it's ridiculous.
Listen, I love Jimmy, and I was just on his show, and I appreciate him. But Jimmy doesn't have all the answers. Cenk doesn't have all the answers.
No.
If we don't all agree 1,000%, it doesn't make you a sellout or a fraud.
No, and I hate that. That's it's cancel culture crap. We just don't have time for that. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I can't even. This is why I don't even want to talk about this. Right. So stupid.
Which is why checking your ego at the door is a very big part of the problem. And
I would like to say something about Roar Media, though. If we're going to talk about little organizations of female, I don't know if you heard of Roar Media yet, Jordan.
What's it called?
Roar, ROAOR, Roar Media. No. And it's Savage Joy had invited me to come to this little group. And basically it's a network of media channels, podcasts, people that are pro. I mean, yeah, it's like a female thing, but it's just raising up voices of more vulnerable communities. That's sort of the premise of Roar. But there is no ego. It's like they promote me anytime I put something out. Like they just want to build up everybody. It's like everybody wants everybody to do well. And for some reason, the egos on the left just cannot seem to get their act together.
Well,
and that is
Jen, you see it every day. Pete, you see it every day. I'm not going to name names, but you have people that literally all day, all they do is send their tweets to various DM groups to get retweeted.
Yeah.
I do that for Status Coup. I send Status Coup's tweets everywhere because Twitter fucking is another platform that, shadow bans and all that stuff. But like, I'm not spending my time trying to get my own tweets unless it's Status Coup content. So like, there's too much, again, it's back to that human psychology. There's too much of this. Yeah, I want progressive change, but I also want to be a celebrity and this and that. Listen, for me, you actually, as a progressive media host, you actually tend to make more money. You actually tend to get more notoriety, if that's what you want. You actually tend to, if you actually do real investigative work. And to me, listen, it ain't all like TYT, yes, they did a lot of good things in the early years. They built up a cult following and they actually had resources. And when you have outlets that have resources and other outlets that have other followers, if you bring this together with actual funding, which very few of us have, Jen, it's very difficult. You could do so many things. You could go cover progressive candidates in the field. You could go cover the stories like Flint. You could cover Standing Rock. You could cover other, like right now I have a freelance reporter doing coverage for us, freezing her ass off in northern Minnesota, covering the Line 3 pipeline protests.
Yeah.
I wish outlets with the funding. Also, it's a synergy, right, Jen? So like if we had all of us come together and we had the funding to send people out in the field, then the commentators could react to that in the field reporting. Doesn't mean they can't do their other hot takes, but that's what I think needs to happen because you're not gonna combat the corporate media with everybody living on their own islands.
And the corporate media is not going to send anybody out into the field to actually gather information because that's not in their best interest. They stopped doing that a long time ago.
No, and
mainstream media used to have actual journalists. There used to be journalists on TV.
The 96 Telecom Act changed everything, and it gradually happened over time.
And I always say this, even during the Dan Rather years, that was somebody who actually at one point was a journalist. Like these were people that did their own reporting and then would report on their own findings. Like that was what that was supposed to be. People haven't noticed the change. Look, Rachel Maddow used to be on Air America and I used to listen to her, following Ed Schultz. But people don't notice the gradual shift that we've obviously undertaken that has been this complete corporate takeover. Yeah,
if you see it in real time.
I'll tell you, I've said this before, but when I was at the Young Turks in my first year, I was doing well. We grew a pretty popular channel there, and I was on the campaign trail. And I was on the plane covering it was towards the end of the campaign. I was on the plane covering Bernie's campaign, and there was a reporter there that I started talking to from a corporate outlet, and he was decent. He was from a corporate outlet, but I didn't mind him. And before you know it, after we talked, like 2 days later, I got an email from an HR person at this corporate outlet. And whatever, they wanted to talk to me. I get on the phone with them. They want to create a progressive movement reporter. They offered me double than I was making at TYT. I'm a human being, so I thought about it.
You had to investigate that.
I thought about it, and I just said to myself, like, if a place has to create a progressive movement reporter, then it's probably not going to be what I think it is. And I also felt that I would be to Cenk's credit, in my first year there, I had full autonomy. I could cover what I wanted the way I wanted, and he gave me the room to do that. And I knew I worked at MSNBC. I knew that ain't happening at this outlet, so I turned it down, and I'm happy I did.
No, but I wish you didn't turn it down, because I have a feeling that because you turned it down, we had to be subjected to Brian Stelter's reliable sources. I'm telling you, man, there's no question it could have been you instead of him.
First of all, we have to go back to the fact that that my friend was married to Howard Kurtz. And
I did not know that.
And you know that. So I knew him, and he'd been down here. He'd been to the house a few times, and I knew him. And always nice. I was at their wedding, the whole thing. And then when all that went down with him, it was like, oh no. And now they're divorced. Now, I don't know that those two things have anything to do with each other whatsoever, but yeah, it was a fall from grace of gargantuan proportions.
You want to hear a behind the scenes story about Brian Stelter?
Sure.
I don't know if I've ever said this publicly. So I got arrested. I got arrested covering Black Lives Matter protests in St. Louis. My cameraman at the time, Ty Bayless, and myself were thrown in jail for a night. You know, not so bad compared to what other people go through. So anyway, I got out, and I said to Jank, like, you going to do anything about this? I mean, I'm not talking like I didn't expect us to get any money, but like, let's fucking raise a stink, sue some people. Like, we were covering this as journalists. Like, I wasn't organizing a protest. I was covering it. Anyway, so that's another story. He didn't end up doing anything about it, but we wanted to get media attention, because you would think we're not like the Washington Post, but like, you know, I'm a journalist. I was arrested doing my job. So I met Brian Stelter years earlier. Whatever. I think he's kind of like an inside the bubble elitist, but I reached out to him just saying like, hey, I don't know, maybe you didn't see this, because maybe you didn't see it, but my cameraman and I were thrown in jail. My cameraman is black. They put real handcuffs on him. They put zip ties on me and the white people. They treated him a lot rougher than they treated me. I saw in the jail, they threw a transgender woman in an isolated cell away from everybody else. In my cell overnight, there was a black person who went into diabetic shock, and they wouldn't open the jail cell to let him out. And it wasn't until I started screaming. I said I was from the New York Times, which was a lie. But I said, if you don't fucking open this door, this is going to be on the front page of the New York Times. And they opened the door. So I said to Brian, like, you know, I didn't expect to be invited onto reliable sources, but I said, I would appreciate if you cover this, because I think it's important. And whether you're CNN or independent, we need to, you know, stick for each other. And he said to me, I'll never forget it. He says, like, yeah, obviously, yeah, there's a lot of journalists, you know, being mistreated and arrested, but like, we wouldn't cover that unless it was from like a mainstream outlet.
What?
But it was happening to somebody from a mainstream outlet. I think that's the whole point.
He is a very, very easy target.
The best part about it, whatever. I mean, Jen, you know journalism. I mean,
I do.
Technically, he didn't say off the record. This was in a Twitter DM.
Right.
So I went to Jank. I said, have at it. Let's fucking go to town. I mean, this guy is claiming to be Mr. Reliable Sources, and he's saying if you're not from the Washington Post or New York Times, and you're not arrested and thrown in jail for the act of journalism, then it doesn't matter. We shouldn't cover it. Jank had his reasons. He didn't want to do it. But the point is, that's the elitism, the arrogance, the tone deafness of these corporate outlets. Because at the end of the day, when you live in New York and DC or Los Angeles, it doesn't make you a bad person, but it makes you pretty disconnected from what really struggling people all over the country are doing. This is why they were so shocked that Trump won, because they had no clue. I mean, I've been through the Rust Belt. I've seen these cities and towns that look like episodes of The Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't remotely surprised that Trump won.
Right. So, that's the corporate media.
Yeah, and he only lost because he mismanaged COVID. That's it. He absolutely would have won again if he had handled it even some semblance of in a reliable way, but he didn't. And again, you know, when you think about where the media is now and where it's going, that's why I think, the importance of recognizing that we have to build this independent media movement, if you will. Even if you aren't on the same network, you have to be media friendly to one another. That's why Jen going on Tim Pool's show, now we can talk about it. Jordan and I had actually talked in private about whether or not it was a good idea. And the reality is we do have to build these relationships. It's essential if we are going to enact major policy like Medicare for all.
I don't do things just for that reason, though.
No, but the importance of not being at odds with people for no particular reason.
I'll just talk to anybody who wants to talk to me about things and hear about policy. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. I won't go on a show that's a circus for the sake of being a circus.
Like Alex Jones. That's not
meaningful discourse. But I'll talk to anybody anywhere about policy. Why would you not want to expand your audience? This never made sense to me. This is a total Democrat neo-lib thing. They do not appreciate sharing information.
No, and again, the reason why I brought up whether or not there is, obviously the importance of independent media, but also the vitality of corporate media, is the fact that Jen put out a tweet which is absolutely factual that Trump or Biden could issue an executive order declaring a national health emergency and expand Medicare to everybody, so effectively implementing Medicare for all. Well, a lot of people loved it, but the neoliberal crowd, including the horse whisperer, who that guy is, he got a hold of this tweet and they absolutely lost their mind. And needless to say,
you're not allowed to have anything involving a decent suggestion, Medicare for all, and Donald Trump in the same context.
If you're talking outside the bubble of MSNBC and CNN, it is amazing. I mean, I'm sure you experience it as well. The indoctrination of people and the way that they can't really think for themselves. Everything is a corporate talking point that they caught off of a CNN or MSNBC show. That is very, very dangerous when it comes to all the negative things that are going on right now. The complete, just trying to find a reason to say that $2,000 checks is not essential. How
they're against it because Trump's for it.
Exactly.
Well, it's so contrarian. These are children. This is the most ridiculous thing. But really, they've been doing this for years. Each administration comes in and undoes what the previous administration does and then adds more to it and makes it worse. And we just keep this sort of snowball effect. And yet none of them prosecute the previous administration. So then they just keep rehiring those same people to come in and do it again.
So what do you think is the key to building that divide, building the bridge from the divide that's happening right now? People are, when you think about some people that are like, oh, you voted for Trump. Oh, I don't ever want to talk to you again. I don't want to know you're alive.
Cancel.
I think that we have to get way past that. It's one thing to hate somebody like a Trump or a Corey Lewandowski, for example. It's another thing entirely to look at somebody who happened to vote because they felt that was the only person who was listening to them and saying, you know what? We have to find a way to come together and build that bridge.
You mean you don't think calling them deplorables is the approach that we should go with?
That's not a winning strategy as far as I can tell. So what do you think, Jordan?
You met the people. You've met all the people. You've spoken to all the Trump people. I mean, we know that the stereotypical person is a very small percentage of his. They
go to the rallies.
Yes, and that's who gets on the news because it's juicy. But the majority of the people that supported him are not those people.
Listen. I mean, this isn't a secret. My parents are Trump supporters, and they're good people. I mean,
and they're not out there with the Dixie flag, and they're
they're deeply misinformed. But I would say there's a lot more Trump supporters that are like my parents. I mean, frankly, my father is he's a Zionist. If Obama if Obama would have worn an Israeli flag pin and moved the embassy, my dad would be like drinking the Obama Kool-Aid. My dad voted for Bill Clinton. So. The point is, listen, I remember in 2016, it was maybe September or October, and I was in Pennsylvania at one of these mega Trump rallies. He was hours late because there was actually a bad storm, so he was late. But all of these people waited, and it was this fucking extremely hot inside arena. And I was waiting, so I was doing interviews. And I remember interviewing somebody who, I don't know, to the naked eye, you could think is like one of these MAGA, white supremacist guys. Yeah. His head was shaved, MAGA hat. And I started interviewing him. And within, 5 minutes, he started crying because he was deathly afraid. His town was basically going like The Walking Dead, business after business going out, plant after plant going out. he had escaped being laid off from his plant, but they were downsizing and he was afraid. He had 2 kids in college, this and that. This was a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
So is there subconscious racism? Yeah. Is there, and there's conscious racism too among a lot of these people, but there's also deep-seated economic distress and fear that makes people susceptible to the other, to Muslims or Mexicans or this and that. And I'm not defending being racist, but you have to, you can't just do hot takes. You have to try and peel back the layer. Why are so many people misinformed to think like Mexicans are the ones stealing their jobs when it's actually the Democrats and Republicans who are selling their jobs to other countries?
I always say, do you really think somebody from Mexico City who manages to get into this country wants to work for $3 an hour? No, they are so desperate they'll take anything.
You know what? It's just the tendency to have everybody kick down, it's, and this is not new. And I say it all the time. I don't care what your problems are in this world. It is not caused by our poor, most vulnerable, disenfranchised people. It's not caused by immigrants. It's not caused by people that are just desperate. And that's the other thing is we are at a time where people are so incredibly desperate. So, it's almost like we're less accountable for our choices when we're desperate, because what wouldn't people do? And you're talking about Trump in 2016 when he was running on a populist message, right?
Yeah. But I also, to me also, the bottom line is I didn't lose friends, but I had a lot of friends giving me shit in 2016 because they were card carrying. We can't do Trump. And they felt all you're doing is covering Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party corruption, and you're not covering Trump enough. And I said, do you not see me at these fucking rallies, these Trump rallies? So because outside of the rallies, I'm not doing 24/7 Trump segments. What can I do that's not being done again and again and again all day, every day by all these other outlets? But to me, you asked, Peter, how do we bridge this divide? A major problem, and it goes back to the 90s, is partisan media. I mean, I'm openly progressive, right? But I'm not Team Blue or Team R because I bash them both. I just call corruption. But Rush Limbaugh and Fox News and MSNBC and now CNN and all of this tribalism is what is stoking this divide. I mean, QAnon, for example, which my partner Jen has done great work on, a lot of this shit is literally talking points they hear from Breitbart, from Alex Jones, from whatever. So I wish I had the answer, because if I did, I'd probably be pretty wealthy. But I think the partisan media that is pouring, it is okay to be partisan. I'm fine if Fox was just open and said, we're conservative.
Yeah.
We want to help the Republican Party. We'll have Democrats on, but this is where we stand and whatever.
Yeah.
But it's all this false advertising that like we're fair and balanced, or MSNBC, like, whatever they're claiming to be, when it's clearly just an arm of the Democratic Party. This is what is brainwashing people. It ain't Russia. It ain't fake Facebook pages. It's the corporate media. And I think you asked, what can we do? This is why I think, honestly, independent media needs to band together more.
Put Jordan's website up.
Yep.
It's statuscoup.com.
Yes. YouTube.com/Status Coup. We are on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I want everyone to know. So I've been a member for a long time. I don't even know when I first joined, but
Thank you.
So if you go to Status Coup, well, that's the YouTube. But I mean, you can join there too. Though there's a link.
So Status Coup.
So
statuscoup.com. You could join as a member, and I think, listen, right now it's tough for everybody. I totally understand if people couldn't financially support us, but we do things a little differently. Like, yes, I do come from a studio a lot, but we go out there. We just covered tonight protests outside Jeff Bezos' luxury penthouse in New York.
How's the guillotine looking? Are they? How is that? I saw you could buy plans for $38.
They stack like a Christmas tree Amazon boxes outside his apartment to represent all the deaths. So basically, if people could support us, we cover a lot of stories no one else does in the field. And you could become a member for $5 a month. So statuscoup.com.
I highly recommend that. You know what, people, it's like when people pay, you pay your cable bill, you pay your, satellite, and you pay all those things, and you're paying, unfortunately, for news that you're not getting. But I look at when I support people, when I'm join something like Status Coup, or I'm a Patreon member for different people, that's supporting the news that I use. So it's sort of like I'm contributing to my news sources. Now, it's unfortunate that this is the only way that this can be done, that we're basically double paying for things, but that's just the way it is. So if anybody can afford anything, these are people that are actually trying to get real stories and real information and not just deliver talking points that are narratives of the corporate government.
And
it's also liberating. I mean, you know this as a candidate, when you genuinely only have to answer to like working people because it's funding you. I mean, I don't have like any boss over me telling me if and how to cover Flint or anything else. So it's really liberating when you could grow just small dollar, $5 after $5 after $5 member. So we appreciate all our members.
Yeah, and listen, I was listening before.
I think my mom joined. I'm pretty sure my mom.
No,
thank you.
You know, and I was listening before when, you know, you basically, you know, went off on that person who was like, you just don't get it. You know, you're never going to find the perfect person that is going to give you everything you want every day, all the time. It's not going to happen. You have to accept.
You shouldn't want that.
No, you shouldn't. You should want discord.
No, but generally the people like being in their echo chambers.
Well, that's the danger. That's
very comfortable.
If you want to be in an echo chamber, you watch MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News.
I can't.
You have to, if you want to question more, if you want to be able to understand what's really going on, because there are millions of people out there. I think about how powerful the independent media circuit could be if everybody, you know, just kind of, you know, were brothers in arms that saw it that way. You know, that to me is. I
think amongst people that are really journalists, I do think it is that
even
way.
Political commentators.
I think, well, some of those people get along, but I think people that are real journalists, like, for example, Jordan, you do a lot of stuff that's very domestic. Most of your stuff is like things like Flint water crisis, Standing Rock. I mean, the political stuff. I mean, you really focus domestic. But like, if I want to know something that's going on in Venezuela, I'm going to go look up whatever Max said on the gray zone. So there are, you know, there's definitely different niches of reporting that, you know, where you don't cover that. That's not what your thing is. So, but people need to be seeking out actual information and not talking heads.
Well, I think I use my mother as a perfect example. I can't tell you how many times. I mean, she's just not like a political person. She puts on the news sometimes, but she's got other shit to deal with. And I remember I would show her my videos from Standing Rock. She'd be like, "Why isn't this on CNN?
Yeah.
Why are they shooting these people that are just banging drums? I don't understand." She was truly stunned, not only at what was happening, but that it wasn't all over the news. When people are actually informed, not the political diehards like us, but like people that aren't the political diehards, they're generally not happy with what they see. And that's power.
Why they're not informed.
Right. That's the power of information, but you got to first get it to them. And that's part of, I mean, this is a broader problem, but, you know, the gatekeepers, YouTube and Twitter and Facebook.
Like, why aren't we talking about the 250 million person strike in India? Why is that not on the front? Like that to me is that was just completely overlooked.
You know, the person who I think, you know, it just kind of dawned on me, and you spoke to him once, that I really think should be on our side, but spends way too much time kissing up to the establishment is Michael Moore, because he really does get what is going on. And he has a very large platform. He's a very wealthy man. And there's a lot of things he could be doing to really furthering this progressive movement.
See, I don't like that you're saying
no, he does, but he gets a little too comfy with corporate media sometimes. And I think he misses things. Jordan, would you care to share what your thoughts are, and whether somebody like Michael, or, you know, it could be anybody that, you know, could really, you know, has that type of a platform, that type of a megaphone that could really
I just think
help
people
advance.
people doing like what they think is.
I think that, listen, I mean, straight up, I reached out to Michael Moore and begged Michael Moore for many, many years to share my stuff on Flint, not to like boost myself, but to get it the fuck out there. Like, if I break something on Flint, it might get attention. If Michael Moore screams about it, it's getting attention.
Exactly.
MSNBC might cover it, you know? And I just couldn't. I don't know if he didn't see it. I don't know if he wasn't paying attention. I don't know.
No, I mean, from my
that kind of thing, I feel like happens.
If we're being completely honest, I think Michael absolutely knew what was going on, and I think he probably was warned that if you do talk about this, we will not have you on MSNBC ever again.
I happen to know that some of that is true. Yes, I happen to know that there was a politician in Flint that he's friends with that is corrupt, and they're childhood friends, and he's just blinded by this politician who was telling him, this guy isn't real, and he's making it up, blah, 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 blah. But also, the bottom line is, folks, a lot of these people have egos. It doesn't make them bad people, but they have egos. For example, I broke a major story. Jen and I broke a major story with Vice a couple months ago on the Flint water cover-up. I was like, all right, Moore has to share this, right? I mean, I got documents. I got timeline. I got the governor of Michigan covering up a deadly Legionella outbreak. This is the governor, by the way, that Michael Moore has crusaded against, Rick Snyder. And he wouldn't share it because he was promoting his climate change thing, his documentary against whatever his documentary was that had all that controversy. So again, I don't think he's a bad person, but a lot of these people, they have their own interests. And if it doesn't align at that moment with your story, but this is the opportunity we have, because if the progressive movement came together, think about it. If the progressive movement came together, progressive media in specific, whether it's Michael Moore, whether it's Kyle, I'm gonna hold my nose and even say TYT for a second. If all these people came together and lifted not just my stuff, but other stuff too. Lee Camp has done great stuff.
Yes.
Lee Camp has done great stuff, and he's kind of in a wilderness at RT. I'm not belittling him, but a lot of his stuff should be front page news. Ben Norton,
I mean, a foreign agent.
Yeah, the list goes on. Imagine for a second if we were all together when I broke that Flint story on Vice.
Sharing
it could have been elevated to the point where the corporate media really can't ignore it and keep a straight face.
As crazy as this is, there's also something to be said for the Google algorithm and whether or not you are constantly putting in print and word that is out there and repeating itself. Google will suppress, but it can only do it so much if you're getting hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people constantly talking about it, and then it becomes a talking point. That was one of the things that we were successfully able to do in the latter stage. We learned a lot when we ran against Wasserman Schultz, but one of the things that became very effective towards the latter stages of the campaign, we had this great person who helped out from Silicon Valley, and she just really loved Jen, and she taught us a lot about how to really get the word out there, and that helped us in the latter stages of the campaign.
That was our search engine optimization expert.
And that can absolutely work here. But I'm telling you guys, for any of the people that are out there, not going to name any names, you know who they are. We'll just say Cenk, because of all the people in independent media, he's got the biggest platform. And if you have a personal beef with Jimmy or whatever it is you have going on right now, I'm telling you, this is the time where you're going to have to make a choice. You're either going to be on the side of the people and what needs to be done, or you're going to kowtow to corporate interests. You can't have it both ways. You just got to make that choice. And I hope a lot of people that are out there, one person in particular who I will not name, who got so down and dirty, was actually attempting to dox Brianna Joy Gray, who is as good as anybody you could ever hope to have on your side in independent media. If that's the road that you're going down, then you're not on the side of independent media.
I'll name everybody. Ben Dixon. Go ahead.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and by the way, so I kind of have a little bit of a girl crush on her, and the thing is, in my mind, if we were ever to do this again, that's who I want to be working with us. That's who I want. That's my and I told Katie I want to come to the next time they have a Zoom sleepover. Yeah, Jen has developed. She's very friendly with Katie and with Rania, and the only person she hasn't connected with yet is Bree. So it's she's gotta. She's like that. Yeah, still untouchable.
I think what your point is, though, it goes a long way. Listen, everybody's got all these people that are public figures have a million people asking them to do something, asking them to retweet something, asking them to do something. I mean, I can't even fucking tell you how many text message, emails, and shit I have asking me to do something. I wish I could. You coming on our little show. I know. And then even though we had to be bumped a little bit for Jimmy, it's all good. I'm sorry about that. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, I actually think I'm not trying to adopt Hillary Clinton's Stronger Together talking points. But I do think, if we would everybody could have their individualism, everybody could maintain their ego. For example, Kyle Kalinske, he's been doing this, I think, for 10 to 15 years. Yeah. He's built up almost 1 million subscribers. So I could see, I don't know if this is how he thinks, but I could understand why somebody who's been doing this for so long, why the fuck, I busted my ass. Why would I want to go join a fucking group thing when it's not a win for him. There's nothing for him. Got to pay forward. I'm just naming that as an example. I don't think that's his mentality. But my point is, Jimmy, for example, he's fucking rocking it. He don't why in his mentality would he need to join a network? But at the end
we
of the day,
couldn't even get him to mention our campaign.
yeah, I know. Well,
no,
I'll be the first one to say I don't care if Jimmy likes it or not. Tim Canova is fucking crazy. He ranted at me privately for daring to interview you. I said to him, "Are you running, Tim? I mean, if you're not running, am I blacklisted from interviewing somebody else who is running?
Even if you were, what would that matter?
Exactly. I
Not
still
multiple people. That's the whole point of being independent.
I'm gonna make a pitch right now, and I just have to say this is all about making sure that everybody understands just how important it is to check your ego at the door. Not only did Jimmy never once mention that Jen was running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz,
even though he talks about her all the time.
We went to his comedy show when he was in Miami. I've known Jimmy for a few years, and I was very fortunate enough to have a private dinner with him and Jordan in Chicago. He is not a bad guy, but he's a very stubborn Irishman.
Well,
And
don't make it sound like it was a private dinner at a penthouse.
No. It was a very nice restaurant in Chicago, but it was a great experience. And my point is, he decided to dedicate half of his show to bashing Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
And he knew we were there.
That's
the thing. Like, he knew we were there.
And so not only would he not mention that Jen was there, he actually had Tim Canova, who was there, stand up and do a bow to the audience. 500 people, mind you. There were a lot. Jimmy is very popular.
And not a single mention that there is a current person challenging her, even though we said they're in bad mouth.
This circles back to what we talked about. High school bullshit.
It's
correct.
So ridiculous.
And Canova badmouthed you to me, to Jimmy probably, and Jimmy probably just bought it.
And that's it. I know. What that's the thing. And that's why the whole purpose of the chart I made is to explain to people that when you're getting information from a source, you have to distinguish that source. If you're dealing with someone who's an actual journalist, they're going to find out if what somebody is saying is true. They're not going to take somebody's word for it and then just sort of ghost somebody. So anybody who would do that is not an actual journalist. And that's what I want people to understand is a very one-sided thing.
And my point is, despite all of that, we support Jimmy's idea.
Well, yeah, that has nothing to do with it.
Because it's not about us. It's not about, again, I'm not going to name names. A lot of you know who they are. A lot of people just don't like Jimmy. Okay? There's a person who I will not name that used to work with Jordan, who I am not a fan of, and says a lot of nasty stuff about him, and it makes me sick. So, you know what? I think
I got in a Twitter fight today.
Well, no, actually it's not her. It's
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
The other one. And so we get to a point where if you actually are fighting for the issues that matter most, if you really want to deliver, the journalism that we need, and if you really want to build the coalition that we can build, where if, God willing, 4 years from now, whether it is somebody like Nina Turner, or dare I say, even if it's somebody like Andrew Yang, you're going to need to check your egos at the door, because the establishment is running out of ways to screw with us. And if we can, in this case, elevate Jordan's story, I have no doubt we're extremely grateful that he took the time to come on with us tonight, but I have no doubt that Crystal is going to have him on Rising, and there will be a lot of other shows where we have to spread the word. Yeah. These are the types of stories where everyone needs to be talking about it, and we need to be helping each other out. If we do that, we can make this happen, because one thing that conservative Republicans always do, no matter how much fighting they have on their side, and they welcome primaries on the Republican side, they always fall in line when it's all said and done.
I just, the thing that's happening with Jimmy with this is sort of the same thing, and it's the same people that were hating on Trump or attacking him from the right. So he would do something right, but you can't give anybody credit for anything that's a decent idea. So, okay, that's the same thing that they're doing with Jimmy. They just don't like the messenger. So
I also think, and I mentioned this to Jimmy tonight, I think there's kind of a off-putting thing that's developing. Maybe it's been there and I just didn't notice. But since when is like the progressive movement a meritocracy system? Like these people are talking like, no, he's not a movement leader. He doesn't have.
They did that with Assange. They do this the same thing. It's like they label somebody how they label them.
AOC, who I happen to respect, I don't agree with her on this, but I'm not going to throw her out with the bathwater. But like she tweeted out like, well, I'm not getting the demand from official movement leaders, and to me, that's just probably unintentionally obnoxious. I mean, like you were a bartender 5 minutes ago, which is fine. Like that's why people loved you, because you were a real person. Yeah. But like, you need to be with National Nurses United to make the demand? Do you need to be with I don't know, our revolution to make the demand. Like, we should not be like, Sam Cedar, and I used to work with her, Nomiki, were bashing Jimmy. And I think Jimmy goes too far sometimes. And I've told him.
100%.
I just think he crosses over to being counterproductive.
But they were saying, like, he doesn't even have a history in political theory. And what experience does he have? Like, when did this become a resume system? Because to me,
well, this is also the danger, and this is one of the reasons, and you know this as well as anybody, there is this crossover with people who bend to the progressive left, but they're also true liberals in the sense that they value decorum and education as much as the neoliberals do. They don't like street people and 9 to 5, but lunch pail, punch the clock people being the leaders of any type of a movement. They really do look down on the low educated. They really do. It's a very big part of the problem. And this is one of the things, I mean, obviously it gets taken to a whole other level. You saw this, I'm sure, repeatedly over the course of the primary, especially in Warren's camp, where she had a lot of those heavy academias that if you're not, college educated, master's degree, philosophical things like it, they don't even want to know you.
But that's
like,
very much how they are. That's what it is.
It goes two ways. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a master's degree. There's nothing wrong with, like, fine, that's cool. But
people that don't have it, they have their own style.
Right. And I also think at the end of the day, like, the bottom line is nobody has a monopoly on giving the blessing in the progressive movement. Like, Cenk, for example, who I'm not going to get into the whole thing. People know, I was let go and there's issues between us. But, if Cenk came up with this idea, the very same people that are against it would be for it. I mean, that's just a fact. That's just a fact.
It's true.
So we need, like, the bottom line is, and I say the bottom line a lot, at the end of the day, like, Nomiki, Sam Cedar, Benjamin Dixon, they don't have a monopoly and they don't get to decide who's capital P progressive enough, or who's accomplished enough, or who's a movement leader enough. Just like Jimmy doesn't get to decide, I don't get to decide. And call me old fashioned. I think I know what I'm talking about. No disrespect to these people that sit in the studio. There's nothing wrong with it. It offers a purpose. But, like, I'm in the trenches. I mean, during a pandemic, I just drove a very long distance. Pete, you know where.
Oh, yeah.
For a very important story, risking myself, my wife's health, 9 hours straight, 2 ways, myself.
Yeah.
Because, like, I think that there's value in commentary, but those people too, even Jimmy sometimes, you're just disconnected if you're not in the trenches. And I get disconnected sometimes. I have such bad cabin fever journalistically because I haven't been able to travel as much as I normally do. Because when you're home for a while, it's just human nature. You kind of lose touch with how bad it is out there. So I think that, a lot of people need to take a step back, whether it's Jimmy or these people ranting against Jimmy. Like, nobody has a monopoly on truth. Nobody has a monopoly on what is the best strategy or is not. I just look at it from a purely mathematical standpoint, this force the vote thing.
Yeah.
She's got a 4-seat majority. There's 7 capital P Medicare for all progressives right now.
Yeah.
There's 4 more coming, possibly 5 if Nina Turner pulls it off. So you do have the numbers right now to demand something.
Yeah.
She's not going to win the speaker. She ain't getting Republican votes. And if these 7 said, we want something for it, and I really think it's a really crappy response and rationalization to say, well, it's not going to pass the first try. Do you think Martin Luther King and Harvey Milk and Gloria Steinem and, indigenous leaders, and you think they were like, well, we shouldn't protest because it's not going to pass tomorrow? Like, that's absurd. That's absurd. Of course, it's not.
Do that, but that's the same thing as only backing candidates that can win.
And not only that, but you know what? Okay, so it doesn't pass, but you actually think it's okay for the Speaker of the Democratic Party to go on the floor and say $600 is substantial? I mean, at some point, you just have to. I understand that there are some people you're never going to get to, but it gets to the point where a lot of them are looking at it and saying, you know what, this is insane. And then Trump, in classic Trump fashion, totally comes in and totally embarrasses Pelosi, totally embarrassed her. She doesn't know what she's doing.
No, they're their own worst enemy. Only they could actually make him look like he has a good idea.
Yeah. Ironically, if Trump would have done what he did yesterday in August, he'd probably remain
Oh,
president.
100%. Well, you know what? He
If
didn't
he had done
do...
an emergency UBI, yeah, he would. I mean,
If Trump, but again, he didn't want to be president. He just loves the attention. There's something to be said for that. 100%.
He doesn't.
But if he really was
I think he
concerned-
wants to remain president too, because he also doesn't want
this is gonna be
to be criminally prosecuted.
And I
how
totally
are we getting him out of there?
I'm totally going to pardon myself. Well, let me tell you something. He is going to, you know what I think he'll do? If he pardons Assange, Snowden, and Reality Winner, I think he'll do that, and then he'll pardon himself. I think he'll catch the windfall from all of the good the good press
I think
from
that
the
would
progressive
make a really
side,
good movie.
and
I don't-
then he
I don't want to
ultimately-
get people. I don't want to get people excited, but I actually think there's a 30 to 40% chance that he does pardon Snowden and or Assange, only because he wants to drive the CIA, the FBI, and all these people mad. Not because
for that.
yeah, not because he's like a thinker and knows that these agencies have done a lot of bad things.
No, my idea was he needs to think that that's the best way to basically screw over the establishment. That's the best way, especially to piss off people like the Clintons.
And not only
Joe
that, but we
and
all
that. Oh my
and
God.
we all know that he is going to do something.
I
He's
hope.
going to
And
start.
honestly, I don't care
Yeah.
why he does it. I just sit there and yes, of course he should pardon Edward Snowden, but I just
Yeah.
I'm
But
not,
he's got to pardon.
I don't worry daily about Edward Snowden's personal upkeep.
And, well, he's got to.
Assange is like
Assange is number one, and the scary thing is, when you've got somebody like Sarah Palin saying
Yes,
you've got to
Chelsea,
pardon
yes.
Assange, but then Alex is wishy-washy on whether we should pardon him or
That
not.
was upsetting.
This
to me.
is where the partisan hack politics, because again, I know why Alex is doing this, because she saw what happened to Tulsi when Tulsi spoke out against the military-industrial complex. They completely buried her where she stood, and she is afraid that the same thing might happen to her. She's got big ambition, whether it's to run against Schumer, whether it's to run for president.
Say you're progressive and then have a very definitive stance on Julian Assange. I'm sorry, I do not see how those things are compatible. I just don't. You don't.
By the way, I mean, I love him. Bernie was a little wish-washy on it too. So
yeah. And it's unacceptable.
No, Bernie says, well, we definitely have to pardon Julian Assange, but I have to say he's done a lot of bad things.
I don't.
It's like, Bernie, who gives a shit?
I gotta tell you, you actually do a pretty good Bernie.
He does a good Bernie. He does a good Bernie. He does a good Bill Clinton. He does Trump.
I got to tell you, I've been paid a lot of money to screw over the American people. I've been paid quite handsomely in many ways. And I keep saying, we got to get this lady into Congress because Slick Willie's a little alone on Capitol Hill. I'm so tired of Hillary. I can't even look at her anymore. She's
you're in the wrong business.
You think?
Yeah.
We actually have Matt.
I'm not as good as Mike McRae. Mike's really good.
Yeah.
He's really good. Got to give him his due. But I do a better Bernie than he does and a better Trump. I will say that. I'm not an egomaniac.
He does a Jesse Ventura that's really good though.
Well, we definitely
Your
have.
Jesse sounds like
Jesse's
he's mentally challenged.
Could you imagine if the Green Party had put me on the ballot instead of that total waste of space?
You make him sound mentally challenged.
I'm not. No.
I'll say, Jen. I mean, before I go, I will say, I think that obviously you're going to do what you want to do, but I think that listen, it's not easy to run for anything during a pandemic. There's obstacles outside of a pandemic. If there was no pandemic, a lot of obstacles for progressive candidates, particularly in traditional Democratic establishment districts like Florida's 23rd.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that, Cory Bush won on the second try. There's others that have won on the second try. So whether it's for that district or elsewhere, I just think, however you think you could, accomplish the most change. But I definitely think you're a strong candidate, and I hope to see you in the future doing something like that.
We definitely hope to have you on again. And, the beautiful thing, and again, I know you've been doing this for about 5 hours straight now. I mean, this is pretty impressive, man. I mean, we love Graham, Graham Elwood, for those of you who don't know, awesome guy, had Jen on. And of course, obviously Jimmy, who's leading a major charge right now for the progressive movement. And of course, coming on with us tonight, probably the longest segment that you've done. And obviously we'd love to have you on again. Guys, remember, it's statuscoup.com, and it's also youtube.com/status coup.
Everybody be a member. This is how we get information. Because the truth is that I'm not driving for 9 hours to go somewhere to get a story. I'm not standing out in Standing Rock, and I'm just not. So the only way that I'm going to get that information is to pay someone else to get it, and that's what you get. So
the most important thing,
I might use that in an ad, by the way. Go ahead.
Well, that's how I feel about it. I feel like I need this information. I'm not going to go get it myself. You need to compensate somebody to get the information for you. So yeah, I'm not driving 9 hours.
And don't. Oh, there's Glory. Gotta love Glory, our buddy.
Oh,
She's coming on board. You know, the
She's
one thing,
on,
you know,
she's
and the
on.
one thing I will say, don't underestimate the value and the power of the message that you pass to millennials and Gen Zers that they can pass on to their parents and so on. That in many ways is how it gets out there. The closer you are to somebody who you know is not seeing it the way that needs to be seen, they can make their own decisions. But the difference between what is actual news and what is fake news is a big, it matters. And being able to get this story out here, Jordan's story about the legitimate theft of the Iowa Democratic caucus. The election was stolen from Bernie, but this is ironclad stuff now. There is actual, you know, you want to call it fuckery, excuse my English, but there was actual coordination between the DNC and the Democratic Party of Iowa to make sure it wasn't about Buttigieg. It was just making sure that Bernie didn't win. That was the primary objective. And you've got actual evidence that proves that that's the case. This story needs to get out there, and it needs to be spread as far and wide as possible. So read it, like it, share it. We have a wonderful new volunteer, Gio, who's with us, who is writing blogs for Generational Change. If he writes about this, that's going to be another.
By the way, I'm like super fucking jealous because like we've been doing this. Status Quo's been doing this a lot longer than you. You got all these fancy graphics and like viewer comments on the screen and all this shit that we don't.
StreamYard, you push the button, Jordan.
No, but I see like all like viewer comments are on the screen and all these.
Switching it up. We'll make it sure.
How do you? I mean, look. It's
then maybe I'm tech challenged because I don't know how to use it. So.
It's better than Zoom. Like we started off with Zoom, but StreamYard's it's just a better thing than Zoom. But this is, look, I'm a dinosaur. Like you can't eat. I mean. So if I can do this, really anybody can do this.
One person I want to leave you with before you go. Her name is Anna Escamani. She is very likely going to run for governor in Florida. She is a true progressive. She's in the one progressive bastion of the state, which is, of course, the I-4 corridor
it's
between
almost unheard of. I know.
Tampa and Orlando.
So suspect about the concept.
Yeah. I went to college in Tampa.
Yeah. No, she's her district. No, she is in Orlando, but you know, not that far. I mean, again, you know,
but she's central and she's running and she's awesome.
Yeah, there's a couple of good progressives in Central Florida. Her and Carlos Guillermo Smith, but you know, Anna, basically,
Ron DeSantis belongs in jail after what he did.
Well, but again, look at our bar. Well, okay, coming after Rick Scott, quite honest, who should also be in jail.
If you haven't connected with Rebecca Jones yet, that's definitely somebody. You know, I wish I had a connection to. We don't. But to get her on the show to talk about I try to tell the Democrats in this state that, you know, we're involved with that are actually on the right side of what needs to happen. Forget about running against Marco Rubio. You're not going to beat him. But there is a legitimate shot at knocking off DeSantis. Not just because you could actually have a true progressive with no baggage, unlike Gillum, with all due respect. Anna's a great candidate.
Yeah, she is.
She really knows her shit. She is doing a great job up in Tallahassee.
Squeaky clean.
She is also in the right part of the state if you want to win a statewide race. The accessibility from Tallahassee down to Miami, if you're right in the middle, that is exactly where you want to be. She is going to have the establishment choice is going to be Nikki Fried. There is no question that that's who it will be. And Nikki is going to have, you know, the establishment behind her, among other things, but it's definitely going to be those two.
And it should be worth your while to possibly look into that.
Yes. So there is no question that she is definitely somebody that if you can get on your own, or I will definitely throw a word in with her whenever she's ready, when it's the right time. Now it's not the right time, but of course.
I don't know. When is DeSantis up?
2022. The gubernatorial election will be the same time if Jen were to run against Debbie again. That would be August of 22. Most of the gubernatorial candidates will probably get in sometime in the spring. It's not going to happen right now, but you know, give it a few more months. There'll definitely be a handful that get in.
We already kind of know where it's going.
Yeah,
I happen to think you guys would know better than I because you're down there. I think if Andrew Gillum, who I think ran a really strong primary campaign.
Oh yeah,
of course.
If he would have not sprinted away from Medicare for all, done photo ops with Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Well, yeah, we talked about that
with Hillary Clinton. There was a lot of voter suppression too, but like he came pretty close. And I think he would have won if he would have ran the primary campaign that he ran in the general.
Speaking of which, one last thing. We do have the Florida Democratic Party chair race, which is coming up, I think, the second week of January. We've already had one person on, Janelle Christensen, who's really good. We are going to hopefully have a few more on as we go forward. I could tell you right now, the choice of the establishment is Manny Diaz. He is personal friends with Michael Bloomberg and Debbie Wasserman Schultz. They have their nice little network going on.
So that's who they're trying to coordinate as the head of the Florida party.
He is, I happen to be friendly with his ex-wife. He was the ex-mayor of Miami Beach. And this is a guy who, just look at, I can't even get into it, Jordan. Just look at his rap sheet. It's pretty ugly.
Can I ask you a question, Peter, for the audience? Yeah. You have like a Debbie Wasserman Schultz bullseye in your home, or like a piñata? Because I don't know anybody that hates Debbie Wasserman. I think you hate her. I think you hate her more than Tim Canova, who's deranged. And I
hate her for the right reasons. I don't hate her.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm just saying.
He just knows that she's the true impediment to progress, and in a way that is just so massive for our whole state.
It's not only that, and again, from my perspective, I've been a Florida resident for over 8 years, and I can tell you, she runs this state.
Yeah.
She runs it.
That's the thing. She's the biggest impediment to progress. So that's where it's sort of all the
if anybody needs proof of that, the fact that Manny Diaz, with all of his dirt and the things, with all due respect, if Lourdes, you're watching, I'm sorry, it is what it is. If what this man has been involved with, if this man has been involved with what he's been involved with, knowing that Michael Bloomberg now thinks he owns the Democratic Party in Florida.
He owns the Democratic Party in the country.
And on top of that,
Cubans in Miami too.
Oh yeah, well listen, and if South Florida still thinks that they run the state of Florida, which they think they do, this is a really big problem. And Debbie is at the head of this because Debbie is very close with Bloomberg.
He hates her. I have to hear this all.
And this is but again, this is a big problem. So if the party's ever going to get out of its own way, we've learned a lot of things recently that we're going to be working on that we'll talk about at a later
there's certain
date.
People that we need to not be in charge of the party.
But there's no question that for anybody who watches Jordan's channel, definitely pay attention to the Florida Democratic Party chair race. Like I said, Janelle Christensen, we've done a podcast with her. Definitely check her out. Ayanna Townsend, we're going to hopefully have her on. We definitely want to make sure
we won't be inviting Manny Diaz.
No, Manny doesn't need an audience. He's got plenty of
We like to give
space.
A platform for people that don't have the corporate platform.
Correct.
That's the whole point. So if you already have the corporate platform, you don't need to be on ours.
Jordan, any final thoughts or comments you want to make before you head out for the night? Definitely, it's been great. This is, like I said, I think we're starting to hit our stride a little bit. We're definitely getting into a rhythm now. And like I said, for Jen, if she is going to run against Debbie again, name recognition and obviously fundraising are probably the two most important things that we would need to cover.
Yeah.
Well, my parting words are keep up the good work. I think you're starting to realize that creating content is extremely hard and laborious.
Yes.
And it's not really a 9-to-5 situation. No. So keep up the good work. And I look forward to seeing what you do next, because I think that I recall I met you with Peter in New York before you ran.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a pretty decent judge of people. I could kind of smell bullshit pretty quickly. And I think you're the real deal. So I hope whether it's, through media or politics, whatever you do, I will cover or participate, because I think, Florida is a really important state. I think Florida is one of the biggest, other than the Pentagon. I don't know another more ground zero for climate change than Florida. I will leave you with this. One thing that we are extremely grateful for, and I do think is if there is a key factor in Jen running again, Sunrise Miami is a phenomenal grassroots
Sunrise movement is definitely
if we knew for sure we would have the endorsement of the Sunrise movement, it would make the decision a hell of a lot easier.
That's the other thing. We didn't get the national.
But I could tell you that the person who is the head of the Miami chapter and has a lot of influence politically now, he is a major supporter of Jen. desperately wants her to run again. This is a conversation that will be had at a later
so
date, like I
doing
said.
this now. And you know what?
Yeah.
And I see Jason Call posted something about that, about running again. You know, every district is different and strategy is just what it is. And it's not the same everywhere.
And in many ways, you have to build it. There's really something to be said for building relationships with people in your community when you're not a candidate.
Well, yeah. And it's just, but every
Which Tim Canova didn't do, by the way.
Never.
Well, he was never from here. He never really had a network here.
And even that wasn't enough. And I will say this, Jordan, one thing to keep an eye on in the future, I would say.
Are you sure? I have a list. You just gave me a full list.
Yeah, well, I get the list can never be long enough. Never ever be long enough. But I will say this. Of all the issues that Jen thinks is the impediments, if you will, for her successfully unseating Wasserman Schultz, labor is number one.
We'll have to have an episode.
Yeah, the head of the Broward AFL-CIO his name is Dan Reynolds, and he's the one that ensures that Debbie is protected. He's protected her for 25 years. And he went a step further because when Canova ran, he granted a meeting or a screening with the members of the AFL-CIO. He broke charter and he did not grant her a screening when she ran.
He wouldn't even let.
There was
Where's my man Fred Frost when you need him?
Oh, we love Freddie.
Let me tell you, Freddie he loves her. He's like
fucking Fred Frost.
Yeah, he's like a broken man. He's like,
I met with Fred Frost for drinks in Miami once. It was awesome.
No,
he's great.
I could tell you what he did do. What Freddie did for us probably was as important as anything. He prevented the CWA from endorsing Wasserman Schultz. Yeah. Maybe the one big organization that didn't do it. And like I said, it would take him forever. He has so many wonderful stories about Debbie crying and shit like that, among other things. It's
Jordan,
it's never
like this. She actually was at a meal with a bunch of these labor guys at our local here.
Yeah.
And she said, and they were like stunned. She said, and I quote, "I don't know what you labor people's problem is with trade agreements."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's what she said to this group.
Well, you have to, and that's why name recognition and the fundraising is so important, because how many people in this district actually know that Debbie was one of, I think, 3 or 4 Democrats who voted to fast track the TPP?
But they'll keep endorsing her.
No, not necessarily. That's why building up the movement is important. So with that said,
thank you so much, Jordan.
Can't thank you enough. And obviously the media circuit awaits, I'm sure, tomorrow and many days forward. And if there's anything,
watch Status Coup, get your news there. It's very good.
If there's anything we can do to continue to help spreading the word about, the latest story with what the DNC did in Iowa, we'll be more than happy to do it. Thanks,
guys. Appreciate it.
Jordan.
Bye-bye.
That was way fun. And so I put up Jason's information there. So yeah, everybody, Jason Call, who ran for Congress in Washington, has announced that he's running again. So I put his information up because he's the real deal out in Washington. So spread some progressive love to him out there in Washington.
It's funny. Our podcast tonight was as long as the one you did with Tim Pool. It's almost 2.5 hours now. So yeah, we've really.
But you see, this always interferes with me eating dinner.
Oh, I apologize. Well, we're all on a very weird schedule, so we'll have a light snack or whatever you want to call it at 11 o'clock.
I don't eat like a normal person anymore.
To reiterate and bring everything full circle before we depart, guys. Don't forget how important it is to build those relationships with people that you don't necessarily think is politically acceptable or whatever. We have to find ways to build those bridges. It's so important, and we have to check our egos at the door. That is the only way that this is going to happen. If you want to build the movement that we need to sustain and beat the establishment, it's only going to happen if we are finding ways to get along.
What's so interesting? Like throughout this whole process, I feel like it never once occurred to me at any step of this to not prop up someone else who is fighting for the same things. Like,
correct.
It would never occur to me to not be supportive of somebody else who is on my team. And my team includes anybody who is wanting to see things like Medicare for all, a living wage, getting out of the wars. Like if you're on the team with any of those things, then we can work. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, no question. And again, subscribe,
everybody subscribe,
share,
and watch,
comment.
Or at least let them play. We need 4,000 watching hours.
Jordan gave us 1 hour and 20 minutes,
which is amazing.
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 So,
But see, and I am extremely loyal and will forever always be loyal.
Glory, then if we have to stick with the local chapter, then we stick with the local chapter. There's nothing more we can do.
And the other thing is, Glory, sometimes you got to at least take help when it's offered, if it's the type of help you need. And it doesn't really matter. If Sunrise National wants to set up like, a couple 100-person phone bank, we'll take the help.
Yeah. The reality is,
that's just the way
we're
it is.
not. We will never.
Them,
we will never take.
help.
We'll never take corporate special interest money.
No.
We will never kowtow to the establishment. But the people can ultimately decide that they want to help us. If the board of Sunrise is not playing ball with the real progressive movement anymore, most of them do get co-opted. But you know what?
But if we
have
can get any
to
help
keep
from them,
fighting.
we're going to take it.
100%. That's and again, this is how it happens. It's totally different. If you have decided, like Cenk Uygur decided, to take 20 million in Jeffrey Katzenberg's money. That is not what we're doing. You have to be willing to find a way to get along with others.
And contrary to what Tim Canova says, we do not take George Soros money.
No, apparently,
if I took George Soros money, I would have had a second mailer.
And contrary to what Tim Canova says, I am not a double agent for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Jordan didn't even get a chance to say this, but Jordan made a great video back right before the primary happened, where he said that if I'm a double agent, then I'm the greatest double agent that ever lived.
Ever in history.
Because again, my dislike for Debbie Wasserman Schultz is because of
it's
we talk all the time about impeding progress. There is nobody who impedes more progress, not only in South Florida, but throughout the state than this woman.
I mean, yeah, she just definitely really does impede progress.
Yeah.
I don't know who that is.
Jen.
Do you know what this
Lauren
is?
Chen. Yeah, she's a hardcore conservative. Zach. No, we didn't. She referred.
I'm a check mark. What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or
probably not.
Yeah, it sounds dangerous.
As a check mark.
Yeah,
what's
you know how
the tweet?
people are.
Tweet? Do you know what tweet he's talking about?
I have no idea. And so, we've
Thank you,
I'd be curious to see how many viewers we had tonight. I think we did pretty good.
Yeah.
I think this may be our best. I haven't even checked the channel yet.
We're not going to do that
to see how many subscribers we now have. But if you haven't subscribed,
because now we're also having to do this again tomorrow.
I've actually got, and guys, we have a listen. We never jinx anything. We're going to be just like Tim Pool. We have a very, very special guest lined up to come on tomorrow night. A person who is, I think, maybe the change maker of all change makers.
He's a very big change maker.
Big. He's a big deal.
And wait, I can give a hint. As to who it is, because anybody who's watched our podcast or knows.
No, let's not jinx it, because you never know.
No, but they might not. No, it's fine. Nobody's going to really know. Okay, so this particular person and I we are alums of the same institution. So that's the thing.
Your final Jeopardy question has been submitted. Good luck.
And we're alums of the same institution. And I can even tell you another thing, that our color for our team that we are an alum from is purple.
Well, so that narrows it down. Everybody's going to be checking Jen's bio and try to put two and two together. And eventually someone tomorrow night will be there and say, hey, I definitely know the answer before the person even gets on the show. So happy,
figure out if you know.
So happy Festivus for the rest of us. If
we're going to air our grievances privately.
Yeah. I got a lot of problems with you people. And you're going to hear about it.
Nobody needs to see us air our grievances.
No, but if you haven't seen the Seinfeld,
people like Lori have seen us air our grievances.
If you haven't seen the Seinfeld episode of Festivus,
highly recommend. We opened up with it, but a lot of people probably came on after. But
but that's all right. So listen, it's going to be obviously going to be able to see the entire live stream. It's going to be obviously no, it's not LSU, Jason. We're not saying who, but definitely, like I said, subscribe, share, comment. Do what you got to do.
Jason, you'll be sorely disappointed if you're a sports person.
Probably. Yeah, probably. So with that said, we love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Spread the word. We'll see you soon.